In my past life, my best friend abandoned her family for decades, only to return after my husband achieved success and our stepchild grew into an accomplished adult. Though I was manipulated my entire life, I ended up being portrayed as the villain who took advantage of the situation. Kong Qing, the only person I've ever truly loved is Qing Dai. Because of you, we've already wasted too many years. I refuse to lose any more time, Mom. Oh, I mean Aunt Kong Qing. My real mother and father are the ones who truly belong together. If you hadn't taken advantage of the situation back then, my mother would have reconciled with my father, and our family of 3 would have lived happily together. After dedicating her life to the Bai family and falling gravely ill, my wonderful husband and stepson not only signed the DNR against medical advice but also hurled cruel words at her. Kong Qing, I was young and foolish when I left Yunqing in anger. But that doesn't justify you stealing my husband and child in my absence. But considering our years of sisterhood and how well you've cared for them, I forgive you. Rest in peace. I'll take good care of them in your stead. He Qing Dai, my childhood best friend who grew up with me in the same compound. Back then, it was she who came to my house in tears before storming off, kneeling to beg me to take care of her husband and child. And it was Bai Yunqing who confessed his feelings for me 3 years after his wife disappeared with signed divorce papers, saying he wanted to build a life with me. Most heartbreakingly, little Bai Yunqing clung to my legs calling me mom, pleading not to abandon him. Had it not been for them back then, I could have had a loving husband, my own children, a happy little family. Asterisk cough cough cough, asterisk, what's going on? What happened to the patient? Why are you blocking us? Let us through for emergency treatment. Don't you understand you're playing with human lives? The doctors and nurses were barred outside the ward by Bai Yunqing's security detail, unable to enter. The irony is, the final moment of life, those I've devoted my life to, one by one, only wish for my early demise, while complete strangers fight tooth and nail to give me one last chance at survival, consumed by rage and struggling to breathe. My bloodshot eyes fixed hatefully on the blissful family by the hospital bed, my resentment festering even in death. Consciousness returned abruptly. I had been reborn before everything went wrong. Kong Qing, you've been my closest friend since childhood. You'll help me, won't you? The scene from my past life replayed before my eyes. There stood my dearest friend He Qing Dai, wearing a white sundress with stylishly permed hair and the most fashionable makeup of the time, a striking sight in those days of scarcity. Her eyes were red-rimmed with unshed tears as she gazed at me expectantly, waiting for my affirmative answer. How could I, a fresh college graduate awaiting job assignment and completely inexperienced in life, possibly know how to care for a man and children? I flatly refused. Qing Dai, as an unmarried woman, I can't risk my reputation by caring for your husband and children while you're away. With reddened eyes and streaming tears, she bolted from my room and knelt at my front gate before anyone could react. Without uttering a word, she stubbornly kowtowed repeatedly after my family rushed out. My parents asked me what happened. To save her face, I didn't mention her begging me outside. Dad mistakenly thought I'd bullied He Qing Dai and slapped me in public. Get inside and explain yourself. Though Mom's heart ached for me, she was too busy dispersing bystanders and coaxing He Qing Dai inside to comfort me. Behind closed doors, I laid out the whole story. Qing Dai said she'd gotten news about her mother and needed to find her, asking me to look after her husband and children. When father learned I hadn't mistreated He Qing Dai, the sternness in his eyes softened slightly, but concerned for He Qing Dai's reputation, he forbade the family from explaining the situation to outsiders. Back on the battlefield when death was staring us in the face, old He risked his life to save mine. He ended up discharged due to combat injuries. Our family owes the He's a debt we can never repay. That's why no one must speak of this, it would tarnish Qing Dai's reputation. He patted my shoulder stiffly, saying, you've always been sensible, you'll understand your father's position, won't you? Not a word about how he'd misunderstood me or about that slap across my face. Seeing her father's habitual favoritism toward her, He Qing Dai dropped stiffly to her knees before him. Uncle, if not for my father's medical discharge years ago forcing mother to become the breadwinner, she wouldn't have gone missing. I must find her quickly. Who knows what hardships she's endured, but I can't abandon Yunqing and the child. Please, I beg for your help. Her crimson forehead struck the unyielding concrete with sickening thuds. After leaving the military, He Qing Dai's father neglected his injuries while searching for his missing wife, leaving him with lasting health complications. Years ago, shortly after He Qing Dai failed her college entrance exams, He succumbed to his chronic illness and passed away. Her words dredged up memories of his fallen comrades, their wounds, their deaths, intensifying his overwhelming guilt. My father quickly helped him up. All right, no more bowing. Old, he would be heartbroken if you hurt yourself. Even though Mom and I disagreed, Dad still went ahead and accepted He Qingdai's proposal, but Dad, as the military region commander, was swamped with duties, so inevitably, everything fell to me. In my past life, this was the beginning of my tragic life. Kongqing, why aren't you saying anything? Are you unwilling? When I didn't answer for a long time, He Qingdai anxiously grabbed my shoulders and shook me. After coming to my senses, I forcefully grabbed her arm, shooting her a vicious glare that scared her so much she forgot to cry out in pain. Why are you looking at me with such a terrifying gaze? As her imposing manner weakened, her speech became disjointed as well. I had absolutely no intention of answering her question, which left her utterly stunned. Ah, that hurts. Kongqing, let go of me, you're squeezing too hard. Kongqing, Qingdai, are you both okay? Open the door. Let's talk this through calmly, no fighting. The walls were paper-thin back then. He Qingdai's shouts were so loud they summoned their mother. Lowering my gaze to conceal the seething hatred in my eyes, I released He Qingdai's hand, allowing history to repeat itself. Soon a crowd gathered at the entrance due to He Qingdai's kowtowing spectacle, just like in my previous life, without the slightest variation. By the time I processed my reincarnation and reached the entrance, the place was already packed with onlookers. Su Kongqing, explain yourself right now. What did you do to Qingdai? Why has she been kneeling at the door kowtowing non-stop? The uncles who were usually close with our family quickly stepped in to calm my father down. Old Su, take it easy, there's no need to be so harsh with the kid. Kongqing has always been well-behaved since childhood. There must be some misunderstanding here. Don't lose your temper. Get the full story first. Kongqing just graduated and came back home. Can't you control your temper? If you drive the child away with your outbursts, don't come crying to me later. Seeing my father's guilty look at my mother, I roughly understood what had happened. I positioned myself an arm's length away from He Qingdai and my parents, moving closer to the uncles in the courtyard. With a grateful smile to the kind-hearted uncles, I said, "Thank you all for believing in me." I glanced at He Qingdai by the door, her forehead bleeding from knocking it in her impatience for my delayed appearance. Unlike my past life's pangs of guilt, I felt nothing but grim satisfaction. Meeting He Qingdai's expectant gaze, I let out a light chuckle before declaring in my youthful, ringing voice, "Nothing much, just that He Qingdai plans to leave, wanting me to become her husband's new wife and her son's stepmother." Under the crowd's stunned scrutiny, He Qingdai abandoned her usual act of pitiful, stubborn innocence. She scrambled to her feet and stumbled toward me, crying out, I didn't, you're talking nonsense." At Dad's signal, Mom hurried forward to steady He Qingdai's swaying body. "Be careful." Dad shot me a warning look. "Su Kongqing, is that something you should be saying out loud? Apologize to Qingdai right now." I dodged my father's attempt to drag me home and declared loudly, "I'm not lying. Su Qingdai and Bai Yunqing just got their divorce certificate yesterday after filing the papers. If you don't believe me, go ask them yourselves." He Qingdai looked at me in shock, instinctively blurting out, "How? How did you know?" She'd clearly asked everyone in the know to keep it confidential, under the noble pretense of protecting the child. In reality, it was about exploiting information asymmetry to tarnish my reputation, paving the way for He Qingdai's eventual return. In my past life, after marrying Bai Yunqing, the compound became rife with vicious gossip. TSK. I heard Battalion Commander Bai's wife left while they were still legally married. The moment Xiaohe was gone, Xiaosu started hovering around the Bai household. Playing housewife isn't that textbook home wrecking? Who'd have thought that demure little Xiaosu would stoop to stealing another woman's husband? They say Battalion Commander Bai's wife was actually her childhood friend. What rotten luck to cross paths with someone like that. I'll try to explain things to everyone one by one. I only looked after Bai Yunqing and his son as a favor to He Qingdai, never entertained any relationship with him beyond revolutionary comradeship. It was Bai Yunqing who proposed to me, not the other way around. I wasn't some lovesick girl throwing myself at him. When He Qingdai left this place 3 years ago, she had already filed for divorce from Bai Yunqing, but without evidence, no one was willing to believe me. Bai Yunqing claimed the divorce certificate was lost, leaving me no way to prove it. I was left speechless against the accusations. He always said, at this point, the more you explain, the more they'll gossip. It's better to ignore it. Rumors fade with time. Our life is ours to live. What does it have to do with others? As long as we're happy together, nothing else matters, right? I tried reaching out to my family for help, but even my father believed the rumors and refused to let me through the door. You never wanted to take care of Bai Yunxing and his son from the start, so this was your plan all along. Tell me, did you seduce Bai Yunxing out of spite, because I helped Qing Dai more than you, was breaking their marriage and stealing him your revenge? No matter how many times I explain, it wasn't me. Bai Yunxing fell for me on his own and proposed to me. You ungrateful girl, how dare you make excuses? Don't you know Qing Dai's father is our family's benefactor? How can you live with yourself after treating her this way? Unable to contain my resentment toward the one who landed me in this impossible situation, I protested tearfully. Dad, are you really going to pretend you bear no responsibility at all? If you hadn't forced me, an innocent young woman, to take care of Bai Yunxing and his son, my reputation wouldn't have been ruined, and I wouldn't have been unable to find a partner for 3 years. Don't say I never tried to seduce Bai Yunxing. Even if I had actually done what you're accusing me of, it would still be your fault. The more I spoke, the more wronged I felt. The stronger my resentment grew. Father's face darkened like a decade-uncleaned pot as he roared, I disowned such a shameless daughter. Get out. Never set foot in the Su household again. Remembering how Qing Dai and her husband played me for a fool in my past life still fills me with white-hot rage. Mom, Dad, uncles, look, she's admitting it. The crowd exchanged meaningful glances at Qing Dai, whispering among themselves. Just recently I saw Xiaohe out with her husband and their kid, they looked so happy together. How could they suddenly get divorced? Yeah, what a strange couple they were. What's Bai Yunxing thinking? Doesn't he know the party's cracking down hard on officials' personal conduct these days? How could he treat marriage so lightly? Young people these days just don't know what's important. This Qing Dai is just, if she couldn't bear to leave her husband and child, she shouldn't have divorced, and now forcing Kong Qing to marry in her place. What kind of logic is that? Exactly. Who knew she'd turn out to be such an irresponsible person? Overwhelmed by the surrounding whispers, Qing Dai broke down in uncontrollable sobs, mumbling incoherently through tears. It's not true. I didn't. Stop spreading lies about me. Her mother patted her back and whispered comfortingly. Don't cry. It's all right. Thud, thud, thud. Father glared at me and shouted, couldn't you have said these things at home? Did you have to make such a public scene? It's not Qing Dai scheming against you, you're the jealous one trying to ruin her reputation. Watching my father's habitual favoritism, his willingness to defend Qing Dai regardless of the truth, sent chills through my heart. In his past life, he treated Qing Dai, Bai Yunxing, and their child far better than he ever treated me. He poured all the Su family's resources into elevating Bai Yunxing's status. My elder brother never received such devoted support from him. In his final years when he fell gravely ill, with mother frail and brother nursing grudges, I was the sole caretaker, yet after his passing, half his estate went to Qing Dai. The other half divided between brother and mother, not a single penny left for me. He even left dying words, after I'm gone, that ungrateful wretch Su Kongqing is forbidden from attending my funeral. His behavior made his comrades and subordinates all mistakenly believe I'd committed some unforgivable sin against him, making them shun me like the plague. After that, my military promotions became nearly impossible. No one would advance someone branded as a naturally wicked ingrate toward elders, especially when said elder was a retired, highly respected senior officer. The truth was, during one of her visits, Qing Dai deliberately scalded her own hand with boiling water to frame me for mistreating her. My father had already resented me for refusing to return Bai Yunxing and his son to Qing Dai after her return. He then blamed me, the one who'd been tirelessly caring for him, for her subsequent absence. The irony. The person who left such a will could peacefully accept my devoted care until his dying breath without a shred of guilt. Any debt of gratitude for raising me, I repaid it in full in my past life. I stood my ground against Dad's baseless accusations, and it ended in a nasty scene. As soon as my job assignment came through, I immediately applied for dorm housing and moved out of the courtyard. Kongqing, Mom knows Dad was wrong last time, but blood is thicker than water. You can't just disown your parents over this. It's been a week since the incident, and 3 days since I moved into the dorm. When I moved out, Dad snapped, "Oh, so you've grown wings now. Don't you dare come crawling back." Mom just stood there listening, not uttering a single word to stop him. The memory made my heart ache faintly. I lowered my head to sip water, masking the emotions in my eyes as I spoke flatly. Mom, that's all in the past now. I've never disowned you, sweetie. Now that you've cooled off, come home with Mom. Staying in the dorm all the time just isn't right. No thanks, the dorm works fine for me. It's close to the military hospital and convenient for work. Seeing she couldn't persuade me, Mom changed tactics. Fine, don't move back, but at least come home for dinner tonight. I frowned, but before I could speak, Mom cut me off. No arguments, or I'll go to your commanding officer myself to cancel your dorm arrangement. Mom also works at the military hospital, and outranks me. She definitely has pull. That was no idle threat, every word carried deadly seriousness. I exhaled slowly. Alright, Kong Ching, thank goodness you're back. Come in, Auntie and your sister-in-law are already cooking. The first person I saw upon entering wasn't my parents, nor my brother and sister-in-law. It was He Ching Dai, who just a week ago had vowed to quickly retrieve our mother suffering hardships elsewhere. Her tone was so familiar that for a moment I thought this was her home, and I the uninvited guest. I quickly clasped my hands behind my back and stepped away to avoid He Ching Dai's approach. She said coldly, "Why haven't you gone to find your mother yet? What are you doing in my house?" He Ching Dai immediately put on a pitiful, bullied victim act. Kong Ching, why are you being so harsh? Doesn't your return mean you've already forgiven me? I frowned toward the kitchen, just catching sight of my mother, who'd heard the commotion, still holding a spatula as she came out to investigate. At this close distance, Mom must have heard everything crystal clear. Mom's evasive gaze told me everything when I looked at her questioningly. Oh, Kong Ching's back. Come on in and take a seat. Mom and I just have 2 more dishes to finish, then we can eat. Make yourself comfortable, it won't be long. My sister-in-law's voice came from behind Mom before she quickly ducked back into the kitchen to continue cooking. Oh, right, you girls go ahead and chat for a bit. We'll be out once we finish cooking. Before my mom could pull back, I called out, Mom, I need to talk to you. Could you come here for a moment? Mom was still hesitating when my sister-in-law took the spatula from her hands from behind. Mom, you go ahead. I can handle the kitchen by myself, don't worry. My sister-in-law is the head chef at a state-owned hotel, so preparing a family dinner is more than within her capabilities. With no grounds to object, Mom reluctantly shuffled over to where He Ching Dai and I stood. What's so urgent that it can't wait? From Mom's account, I learned this family dinner had been He Ching Dai's idea all along, her olive branch to reconcile with me, arranged through Dad. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether Dad was truly my father or He Ching Dai's. Kong Ching, don't leave. I genuinely want to make amends with you. I admit it was thoughtless of me to ask you to look after Yunxing and his son, but wasn't it wrong of you to publicly accuse me of trying to force you to marry Yunxing and become Yunxing's stepmother? Wait, can't we both compromise and start over? After hearing the truth at the family dinner, I turned and left without a moment's hesitation. I let He Ching Dai shout her nonsense behind me. I couldn't be bothered to waste my time on her. Su Kong Ching, you get back here. Didn't you hear Ching Dai talking to you? What's your problem? Looking at the tall figure blocking the doorway, I knew clearly that I wasn't getting out of here today. A wise person submits to circumstances. Fine, have it your way. I greeted them half-heartedly. Dad, brother, you're back. Father frowned deeply. Get inside and talk. Don't embarrass me standing at the damn doorway. He then strode into the house first, with that annoying pest He Ching Dai trailing right behind. Uncle, perfect timing. Dinner's ready, let's eat first and talk later. My brother hung back and whispered, Don't worry, I've got your back. Just handle the old man's demands however you want, agree or refuse, I'll take the heat. My nose stung as I nodded. My brother had said those exact words in my past life too, standing firmly by my side through everything. In my past life, I foolishly believed I could handle everything alone, never wanting to burden him. By the time he found out, it was always too late. When He Ching Dai falsely accused me of bullying her through those theatrical kowtows, my brother immediately went out of his way to defend me. No one believed us. The old man punished him by sending him on perilous covert missions. He barely made it back alive. After marrying Bai Yunxing, the vicious gossip nearly suffocated me. Again and again, my brother comforted me and helped me through the storm. After giving Bai Yunxing a thorough beating, I tied him up and forced him to publicly confess that I'd never morally crossed the line by interfering in his marriage with He Ching Dai. When father found out, He immediately transferred the man to the harshest and most dangerous frontier troops, calling it tempering experience, but actually serving as punishment, after father fell seriously ill. Everyone knew how much my brother doted on me and pressured me to call him home, yet I never once asked him to return. I cared for father willingly, especially since my husband Bai Yunqing owed his entire career to father's patronage. Despite all his oppression toward me, I still grudgingly took care of her. But why should my brother be the one looking after him, the debt of raising me? He'd long been sending my brother into life-threatening situations time and again, falsifying the military honors my brother earned with his blood for Bai Yunqing's benefit, time and again exploiting fatherly bonds to pressure my brother into silence and compromise. The debt is settled. In the end, this family banquet remained unfinished. He Qingdai suddenly burst into tears while eating braised pork. When I was little, Mom would always save up the meat ration coupons for Dad's homecoming. She'd go to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy meat and make his favorite braised pork. Back in the 60s and 70s when everything was scarce, how good could braised pork really taste with barely any seasonings available? Besides, her mother was just a simple farmer from the countryside. How could her cooking possibly compare to her sister-in-law who worked at a state-run restaurant? Ridiculous. She's just saying that to remind Dad. The only reason I'm still sitting here instead of going to Mom is because of your daughter, Su Kongqing. Dad immediately slammed his chopsticks down. Su Kongqing, are you blind? Can't you see Qingdai crying because of you? Apologize to her right now. I regretfully wolfed down the dish my sister-in-law made, casting a longing glance at the mouth-watering feast on the table that wasn't meant for me, with my sister-in-law busy taking care of the kids. Chances to enjoy her cooking were already rare. Later when I followed my brother on his constant travels, we barely even saw each other. Then came the estrangement. First our father stood between us, then Bai Yunqing. Sitting down for a proper meal together became impossible. How I miss those days. Setting down my chopsticks gently, I rose from the table. Since I'm not welcome here, I'll take my leave. No point staying where I'm unwanted. Without waiting for father's response, I turned and strode purposefully toward the door. Halt, Su Kongqing, did I dismiss you? Have you no respect for your father? His commanding tone would have made fresh graduates or his subordinates tremble, had I been either. But I wasn't really in my early 20s, nor was I one of his subordinates. Seeing that my steps didn't stop and my pace remained steady, the angry roar behind me grew even louder. I told you to stop. Did you hear me? My ears twitched as I keenly caught the sound of clashing dishes. Wasting food and squandering my sister-in-law's hard work is truly unacceptable. As I hesitated whether to glance back, even louder commotion erupted behind me, the screeching sound of chairs being dragged across the floor. Mom's voice rang out. Old Sue, what are you doing? Stop this instant. My brother's frantic voice rang out. Sis, watch out, get out of the way. My sister-in-law screamed. Oh God, blood, so much blood. Then came the sound of approaching footsteps. I wanted to turn around and see what was happening. My head felt detached from my body, completely paralyzed. I wanted to ask my brother what he was warning me to dodge, but when I opened my mouth, not even a whisper escaped. I wanted to tell my sister-in-law to lower her voice before she startled the baby in her womb. That's right, in our past life, after my brother was sent on a classified mission, we discovered my sister-in-law was pregnant. When my brother returned critically injured, only the knowledge of his unborn child kept him holding on, but the prolonged stress took its toll. My nephew was born significantly weaker than other newborns. In this new life, I won't let my brother face death's door again, nor allow my nephew to suffer from frailty. My eyelids feel so heavy, my limbs too, even the strength to speak has left me. My body feels boneless, beginning to float weightlessly, yet I, powerless. Little sister, are you okay? Just as I braced for the impact's sharp pain, I fell into a warm, solid embrace, the familiar comforting scent filling my nostrils. The corners of my lips curled up involuntarily as I let my consciousness sink into endless darkness. Her serene expression seemed to be telling her brother, "It's okay, brother, I'll be fine, so don't worry." When I woke up again, I was in the hospital, surrounded by familiar colleagues. Kongqing, you're finally awake. How are you feeling? Does your head still hurt? Can you speak? I parted my dry, chapped lips, and my hoarse voice came out like air being squeezed from a broken bellows. What happened to me? My colleague gently moistened my lips with a damp cotton swab before patiently helping me sip water through a straw. From her, I learned I'd been hospitalized with a back-of-the-head injury and had been unconscious for a full day and 2 nights. how could you be so careless? Just walking downstairs and you managed to crack your skull. You nearly needed brain surgery, you know that. Though I didn't end up needing a craniotomy, the hematoma in my brain is still quite dangerous. I'll need complete rest and close monitoring for a while. If tests confirm my body can't absorb the blood clot naturally, I'll have no choice but to undergo brain surgery. Kongqing, you're finally awake. Your mother's been worried sick. Mom works at this hospital. She dropped everything and rushed over the moment she heard I'd regained consciousness. Seeing the faint dark circles under Mom's eyes, I tenderly squeezed her hand resting on my shoulder. I weakly murmured, I'm fine. Kongqing, how are you holding up? I'm sorry, if it weren't for me, Uncle wouldn't have. Shut up. Mom hastily cut off He Qingdai's thoughtless remarks, but the colleague looked between Mom and He Qingdai, mouth agape with visible astonishment. Mom quickly dismissed her. Shaoli, get back to work, and remember, you heard nothing just now. Understood, cowed by authority. The colleague promptly nodded in compliance, shooting me a pitying glance before leaving. After that, I refused to utter a single word in response to Mom's questioning. Mom clutched my hand with tear-filled eyes. Kongqing, please say something, you're scaring me. I just coldly shifted my gaze to He Qingdai beside me. Why, is she here? Mom's mask of sorrow crumbled away, revealing the guilt beneath. Her eyes darted nervously, avoiding mine. Qingdai, oh, she just happened to be at my office, so I brought her along to see you. My eyes were fixed on the hospital uniform she was wearing, my brow furrowed. As the pain in my head intensified, I closed my eyes again. After a while, perhaps thinking I had fallen asleep, I faintly heard two people talking nearby. Qingdai, don't follow me next time. Kongqing won't be happy to see you. But Auntie, I work right here. Kongqing will find out sooner or later. It's better to tell her now. Don't you dare mention this to Kongqing again. I'll talk to her when the time is right. Do you hear me? Auntie, Kongqing and I are closest friends. I can't just stand by and do nothing for her. I said don't come, so don't come. That's an order, no negotiations. My gut told me there was more to their conversation than just He Qingdai joining the hospital. I wanted to open my eyes and ask, but my eyelids felt like lead weights. My weakened body slipped back into unconsciousness. When I came to again, it was already evening, and this time my sister-in-law was sitting by my side. Kongqing, have some water first to moisten your throat before speaking. She must have taken those caregiver training courses, though my sister-in-law's movements were slightly unpracticed while helping me drink water. Her care and technique were unmistakably professional. Just as I was about to ask He Qingdai what happened, two tall figures walked through the doorway. Dad, brother, good, you're awake, Dad said naturally as he took the vacated chair from my sister-in-law. Don't just stand there like an idiot next time when you see porcelain flying at your head. Move. Was all that childhood training I gave you wasted? I never expected Dad wouldn't even offer half an apology. His first words were pure blame. I glared at him coldly, my eyes locked onto his. Uncomfortable under my gaze, Dad averted his eyes. Why are you looking at me like that? Got something to say? So even Dad can feel guilty. How novel. Sorry, my parents didn't give me eyes in the back of my head. Is that how you talk to your father? I looked at the stubborn old man who would never admit fault in his lifetime with a sarcastic gaze, stubbornly refusing to bow my head. Seeing Dad about to lose his temper again, my brother immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me completely with his tall frame. Dad, little sister hasn't fully recovered yet, she needs rest and shouldn't get upset. Though I couldn't see their locked gazes, my sister-in-law's anxious expression, wanting to intervene but not daring to, made it clear the tension was intense. Humph, you two think you're grown now, beyond my control, have it your way, consider yourselves no children of mine. As Dad opened the door to leave, I caught a glimpse of He Qingdai's profile through the slightly ajar door. After Father left, I asked my brother how He Qingdai had gotten into the hospital. My brother was reluctant to explain at first, but eventually told me when he realized I'd mostly figured it out. While I was in a coma, Father abused his privilege to transfer my school-assigned hospital position to He Qingdai. Dad originally came today intending to tell you himself. A mocking smile curled at the corners of my lips. So he beat me like this, and even coming to see me was all for He Qingdai's sake. My brother tried to reason with me. Dad just values loyalty too much. He couldn't see straight. I raised my hand to cut him off. Brother, I'm exhausted. I told my brother I was going to report this as a victim, and he was shocked. Dad will be disciplined for this, won't he? It'll be hard for him to advance after this. Brother. We've come this far, has Dad ever given us any help? My brother quickly understood what I meant. After a long silence, he said gravely, "Are you sure? We might never be able to go back from this." Though my injured mind couldn't move my body, I met his gaze with unwavering determination. "I'm certain." Before my brother left, I said, "Brother, I'm only reclaiming what rightfully belongs to me. If Father could break the rules once for Dai, he'll do it countless times. By doing this, we're actually helping him correct his mistake in time. Aren't we?" My brother turned back and gave me a profound look, nodding firmly. "Don't worry, I'll handle it." As the door closed and I was drifting off to sleep, the distinctive aroma of my sister-in-law's cooking wafted into my nose. When the corner of the blanket was gently lifted, I suddenly startled awake. My sister-in-law froze momentarily before continuing to tuck me in. With an apologetic expression, she said, "Did I wake you? I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time." I'd barely started shaking my head when my sister-in-law gently steadied me. "Careful now," she cautioned, "you've got a head injury. The doctor said you should avoid sudden movements." I lightly placed my hand over hers and met her gaze earnestly. "Sis, I'm fine. You should go get checked at the OBGYN right away." "What?" Her face went blank with confusion. Clearly she hadn't realized her condition yet. With theatrical gravitas, I pressed my fingers to her wrist like an old apothecary. "I picked up some pulse reading in school. I think you're expecting." My sister-in-law looked puzzled. Mom never mentioned medical schools teaching pulse diagnosis. Even so, seeing how insistent I was, she humored me by making an appointment at the OBGYN. The test showed she was 2 months along. She couldn't stop smiling while taking care of me. My brother moved fast. Military personnel came to take my statement within 2 days. As soon as they left, Mom hurried over to ask me, "Those people were from your father's military unit, weren't they? What did they want with you?" Having worked in a military hospital for many years and with my father holding a fairly high rank, Mom could spot military personnel when she saw them. I closed my eyes. "Nothing." Ignoring my head injury that shouldn't be jostled, Mom grabbed my shoulders and shook me violently. "How could it be nothing? Investigators at their level don't get involved over trivial matters. Tell me right now, what did they want with you?" The shaking made me dizzy. If my sister-in-law hadn't rushed in to call the doctor, she'd have scrambled my brains like an egg. After that incident, my sister-in-law took extended leave to stay with me in the hospital, refusing to let anyone be alone with me again, since he needed frequent prenatal checkups anyway. My brother arranged for the hospital to add an extra bed in my private room, where my sister-in-law also stayed. When Mom returned and learned Dad had been taken away by investigators, she desperately pulled strings to uncover the truth. But this was a covert operation. Even those with inside information dared not breathe a word to her. Soon enough, her worries ended when she too got implicated and was taken in for questioning. The investigation concluded within 2 days. Father was identified as the mastermind while Mother acted as an accomplice, both receiving disciplinary actions of varying severity. Though his military rank remained unchanged, this stain on his service record effectively ended any chance of career advancement. Thanks to her father's vigorous defense, Dai emerged unscathed though she lost her job. This cost Father numerous personal favors and resulted in harsher disciplinary measures against himself. After my brother told me, I just gave a faint smile and said, "Serves you right." Glancing at the closed hospital room door, my brother cautioned, "Walls have ears," but his expression was full of agreement. We exchanged glances and simultaneously broke into knowing smiles. Bai Yunxing, fearing political repercussions, swallowed his pride and retrieved his marriage application from the leadership during the approval process. "Commander, you're absolutely right. Marriage requires careful consideration. Having just divorced, I should be even more cautious about remarrying." The commander's expression became indescribably complex as he looked at him, though Bai Yunxing never disclosed the real reason for his whirlwind divorce and quick remarriage, merely citing incompatibility before deciding to try again for the sake of their child and maintaining a complete family. But the boss isn't stupid either. After marriage, he milked my father for countless favors and unwarranted privileges through Dai's connections. What I said outside my parents' courtyard recently has now spread through the entire military high command. When their scheme against me, my father's own daughter, failed, the couple immediately reconciled. Could they be any more shameless? When leader Bai Yunxing came to visit me, he made a point of telling me this story and concluded with, "Kongqing, You did the right thing by making a scene back then, with your father being so blind to his own flesh and blood, who knows what might have. Ah, never mind, just focus on recovering, uncle's just rambling, take it as some light-hearted chatter, thanks uncle. The moment our parents stepped out, they scoured the entire compound looking for my brother. Father was holding the military whip he'd used during the war, which later became his tool for disciplining us siblings. Though mother carried nothing in her hands, her expression was no less terrifying than father's. My brother received dozens of public lashes from father before the uncles in our compound, unable to bear the sight, intervened and rushed him to the hospital. My private hospital room got converted into a triple occupancy ward. My sister-in-law had no morning sickness, so she took the middle bed to care for both of us siblings. When alone with my brother, I asked him, "Do you resent Dad? He always put you down and gave your military honors to Bai Yunxing." My brother was lying face down, but lifted his head to look at me when he heard this. A man of steel sheds blood, not tears. Looking into his eyes, I was overwhelmed by a profound, inescapable sorrow. My nose tingled with the urge to cry for him. My brother simply said calmly, "I used to resent it, but not after submitting the documents. Because what he took from me, I'm about to take back. Aren't you sad about that?" "I used to be, but not anymore. I also made mistakes. I shouldn't have tolerated it just because he's my father." "You're right, if we point out his mistakes, he won't have the chance to make bigger ones. If I hadn't kept quiet all this time, Dad wouldn't have ended up like this, and he wouldn't have even thought about involving you. Bro, this wasn't your fault." "Yeah sis, I'm okay now, and you'd better not cry either." When my sister-in-law returned to find two tear-streaked faces sobbing across the hospital bed, she ended up playing peacemaker to both, turning the ward into quite the lively scene. Honestly, grown adults bawling together, is this really the prenatal education you're giving your child? We were laughing so hard we snorted while tears kept streaming down uncontrollably. The charge of falsely claiming military honors carried greater weight, and since it involved senior officers, the investigation proceeded more discreetly and slowly. On the day my brother managed to push himself up from the hospital bed, our parents came to see us. My sister-in-law was politely escorted out by Dad's security aide, leaving just the four of us, our immediate family, in the hospital room. Both my brother and I were on edge. My brother quietly claimed the seat beside me, putting himself between our parents and me, his eyes repeatedly darting toward the thermos by the bed. I only noticed because I'd had my eye on that same thermos. After catching my brother's gaze, I shifted my attention to every throwable object on the nightstand. "Speak up, whose idea was it to leak our arrangements for Qingdai's employment?" Father's authoritative voice carried far less anger than on the day he'd struck my brother. The uncles in our compound must have been advising him, "Children grow up. You can't keep disciplining them physically." Hearing this, my brother and I instantly felt a wave of relief. At least we didn't falsely attribute his achievements or help Bai Yunxing fabricate military merits. I spoke up calmly, "Dad, that was my job to begin with. You never considered my feelings when you gave away my job opportunity, so what right do you have to question me now?" "So it was your idea." I could feel his rage as he declared firmly, "Damn right I want justice. Ungrateful girl, that man was our family's benefactor. Stubborn old fool. Your savior's long dead. He Qingdai isn't who rescued you back then. She's old, he's only child. If I don't protect her, how could I ever face him in the afterlife?" "Dad, didn't you give Uncle he enough when he was alive? That debt was settled long ago." "You ungrateful little shit, how did I raise such a thankless bastard? I'll beat you dead today." "Old man, what rotten luck to get stuck with a clueless father like you. Lay one finger on me today and I'll report you to the army for attempted filicide." The blood clot in my brain hasn't passed the critical stage yet. If Dad lays hands on me now, he might as well be signing my death warrant. This statement is completely genuine. Even if I die, my brother's still got my back. Dad can't escape this. I'll beat you to death. "Dad, calm down. If you need to hit someone, hit me." I agree with that. And as the older brother, I should be punished first. Knowing he couldn't win a fight and would never raise a hand against his father, the older brother simply took all the blame upon himself. I glanced at his back, straining even as he tried to stand up, and shouted, "Old man, every debt has its debtor. I'm the one who did this. If you've got what it takes, come at me. I'm dying to see just how far you'll go for the daughter of a comrade in arms who's not even related to you by blood." Chaos erupted instantly in the hospital room. I hurled whatever I could grab at Dad, fruit, glasses, pillows, anything within reach. My brother snatched up a thermos and stood between Dad and me, blocking his path, perhaps consumed by rage. Mom just watched coldly as Dad raised his hand against us two wounded souls. The hospital door was knocked politely. Hearing the sound, I mustered my last ounce of strength to cry out, help. The door burst open, revealing several sharply uniformed military officers. There stood my father, a robust, uninjured senior officer in active service, while we were just two feeble patients. After quickly assessing the situation, they forcibly restrained Dad, caught off guard, something that hadn't happened in years. Dad was subdued before he could react. Coming to his senses, Dad struggled violently. "Let me go. Do you even know who I am? How dare you lay hands on me?" To his shock, their grip tightened. "We know exactly who you are. You're under investigation for falsifying military merits, fraud, and abuse of power." When my brother and I heard this, our hearts were finally at ease. The fact that they could say it directly to our faces showed that their investigation was nearly complete. After Dad was taken away, Mom, being the one who raised us, quickly sensed something was off from our reactions. With trembling fingers, she pointed at us in disbelief and demanded an answer. "Was it you again?" After the investigation results were made public, there was no hiding the truth. "We might as well admit it. How dare you? He's your own father. What good could this possibly do you?" I pressed my lips together and looked earnestly at Mother. "What exactly did elder brother do wrong? How dare father casually give away the military honors he risked his life for?" "Su Kongqing, your father was right. You're nothing but a debt collector. I truly regret raising a demon like you with my own hands." My heart turned cold. So Mother had merely been hiding behind father all along. She was no different from him. I sneered. "Oh really? Then you'd better watch your back. Mother, you might be next." Mom fled my hospital room in such panic that she didn't even stop to retrieve the high heel she'd lost. After years of wartime grace, the general's lady found her heart racing with fear once more. "Su Kongqing, how could you be so cruel? Sending both father and Yunqing to prison. Flattery won't work, you're the cruel one, stealing my brother's military honors for your worthless husband. Not content with trying to trick me into being your son's stepmother, you even had the audacity to use my parents to steal my job. So what? With your parents backing him up, your brother won't die from missing a few military merits. With your parents around, you won't starve even without a job. With such a wonderful Yunqing and such a sweet Nianqing, I'm handing them over to you. You should be counting your blessings instead of complaining." "Ha, hee, you're absolutely ridiculous." As I pulled the cloth off the nightstand, I hit the stop button on the running cassette recorder, then I called out loudly toward the door, "Brother, come in." Qing Dai frowned at the tape recorder. My father had been kind to her, and her family owned an identical model. "Su Kongqing, how dare you record this?" She lunged to snatch the recorder, but my brother pinned her to the ground. Her cheek scraped against the rough concrete, leaving an angry red abrasion. I calmly removed the cassette from the recorder and handed it to the investigators who had just entered. Qing Dai has admitted her involvement in stealing my brother's military honors and my job. Here's the evidence. Please keep it safe. Thank you for your cooperation, Comrade Su. We will ensure every person involved faces consequences. On the day the investigation results came out, given my father's age and the impracticality of reassignment, he was forced to voluntarily apply for early retirement. After being discharged from the military, Bai Yunqing was processed for demobilization. Both he and Qing Dai could potentially face prison time, but Dad is still pulling strings for them behind the scenes. The final outcome remains uncertain, though my brother's military merits were officially recognized again. The army temporarily shelved his promotion due to his involvement in covering up for Dad. That same day, the doctor told me, "The hematoma in your brain shows signs of nerve compression. We recommend a craniotomy." Though I lack clinical experience, I do have a solid medical background as a graduate in the field. Outwardly I raised no objections, but privately asked my brother to take me to 2 other hospitals for second opinions. On the day of surgery, just as the anesthesia took effect and my consciousness began fading, my mother and Qing Dai, who shouldn't have been there, appeared in the operating room, prepped for surgery. My eyes could barely stay open, but I recognized my mother's voice. "Are you absolutely certain? There's no precedent in China for treating mental illness with prefrontal lobotomy, and Comrade Su is your own flesh and blood. Such a risky procedure." That was the lead surgeon speaking. "All right. You're not responsible if anything goes wrong, so what are you so scared of? Even I, as her birth mother and lead surgeon, haven't said anything, so what right do you have to speak? That was He Qingdai's voice. The argument went on for a while, finally ending when the anesthesiologist reminded them it was time to start the surgery. Just as I felt the cold scalpel about to touch my scalp, the lead surgeon suddenly yelled, "I'm not participating in this surgery, this is utterly unethical, hey! How could you be so irresponsible? Get back here, forget it, if he won't participate then he won't, let's carry on." The lead surgeon opened the operating room door but couldn't step out. A group of people entered and restrained all the doctors and nurses, forcibly escorting them away. They gave me the maximum allowable dose of anesthesia. I didn't wake up until a full day later. My brother looked at me with grave sorrow. Mom's been charged with intentional assault, stripped of her military rank, and might face prison time. He Qingdai bribed an assistant surgeon to ensure you'd never wake up after the craniotomy. They've all been charged with attempted murder. When Dad heard about this, he abandoned Bai Yunxing completely. Prison was inevitable for him. Even after release, he'd just be an ex-con. Seeing I hadn't said anything, my brother cautiously comforted me. "Hey, don't be sad. Mom just had a momentary lapse in judgment. She didn't actually want you to die." I nodded, feeling dizzy. Touching my smooth head sadly, I said, "It's fine, I understand. My only worry now is how long it will take for my hair to grow back." My brother forced back the tears that had been welling in his eyes, patted my big bald head, and said with an amused tone, "It feels nice. This look works for you too." I gave him a resentful look. "There's nothing I can do. I'm just a weak patient now. I can't even glare at anyone. I'm recovering well. And I didn't need surgery." By the time I was discharged, my hair was already almost as short as a tomboy's. Everyone has paid their due price. After leaving the military, Dad lived alone. Mom was diagnosed with mental illness. She avoided prison but would spend the rest of her life in a psychiatric institution. He Qingdai and the doctor she bribed were sentenced to death. All medical staff involved in that surgery were fired by the hospital and permanently blacklisted from the profession. Bai Yunxing was sent to prison, completely ruining his future prospects. That ungrateful stepson Bai Nianqing from my past life was sent back to his rural grandparents. Rumor has it he wasn't even allowed to attend school and was frequently bullied by village kids. Both my brother and I thrived in our careers. And my sister-in-law successfully gave birth to a healthy baby boy the following year, yet we seldom visit Mom and Dad. The year my nephew was born, Dad unexpectedly showed up at the hospital with a thick red envelope. In less than a year, nearly half his hair turned gray, his complexion worsened, and he aged considerably. Under our wary gazes, he found a seat, sighed deeply, and began speaking to himself. "I recently fell seriously ill and had this bizarre dream." His dream eerily overlapped with memories from my past life, though I didn't let it show. I could tell he was studying my expression. Naturally he'd suspect me. After all, I'd been orchestrating every event that diverged from his visions. He saw nothing and lowered his eyes in disappointment. As soon as he finished speaking, my brother couldn't wait to shoo him away. "Are you done? If so, leave already, the child needs rest." Father gave us a long look before struggling to his feet. Leaning heavily on his knees, he gazed at our indifferent faces with disappointment. "I'm still your father after all. You should visit me more often when you have time." After hearing my brother and me respond half-heartedly, I clearly saw the old man's perpetually straight shoulders slump slightly. With a heavy sigh, he walked away alone after all. His retreating figure looked desolate and lonely. Later, when Mother passed away, my brother and I personally arranged her cremation and burial. Then the old man died, leaving all his inheritance to my brother and me. After quietly completing the funeral arrangements and burying him alongside Mother, we donated every penny to the state without keeping a cent. Years later, while taking my daughter shopping, we encountered a disheveled homeless man with a limp sitting by the roadside clutching his stomach. My daughter, taking pity on him, handed over her untouched steamed pork bun with my permission, saying, "Here, uncle, this is for you." The homeless man devoured it ravenously, but when he looked up at us, his eyes held greed without a trace of gratitude. I stepped back with my daughter, yet his expression shifted abruptly to shock the moment he got a clear look at my face. He dropped the precious bun he'd been clutching, swept aside the hair covering his eyes with one hand, and rushed toward me in agitation, reaching out to grab me. "Kong Qing, it's Yunxing. We were supposed to be a very happy couple. I was wrong in my past life. Please, come back to me, okay. I frowned, studying him for a moment, and recognized him as Bai Yunxing, confirming that he, too, had regained his memories. I no longer retreated. As he happily approached, I kicked him squarely in the stomach. Get lost, I don't know you. Bai Yunxing was too weak to stand, vomiting on the ground for what felt like ages. Seizing the moment, I scooped up my daughter and hurried away, once sure he was out of earshot. My daughter whispered in my ear, "Mommy, who's that uncle? How does he know your name?" Stroking her soft hair, I reassured her, "Don't worry about him, sweetheart, just someone unimportant." Did he scare you? Rounding the corner, I cast one last glance at Bai Yunxing. In the building's shadow, he crawled and writhed toward my departing figure with all his might, like some twisted, squirming maggot, while I stood bathed in sunlight, cradling my daughter. We might as well have existed in different worlds. I mouthed the words, "Serves you right, good riddance." Without a second thought, I carried my daughter away and never set foot in that neighborhood again. Story 2. In this lifetime, I chose not to sit beside Jiang Jin, nor did I pester him for cuddles and piggyback rides. I never even promised to bear his children or care for his parents. Filling out college applications in 1978, he chose the Whampoa Military Academy in Shanghai. On the other hand, enrolled at Beijing Foreign Studies University. In our past life, he failed none but me, though he served the people and country well. This lifetime, I only hope we find our own peace, our paths never crossing again. I attended diplomatic negotiations. Standing guard beside me with bloodshot eyes, he choked out, "Song Anren, why are you abandoning me?" Beijing Foreign Studies University. Song Anren, are you serious? Didn't you promise to marry Jiang Jin after graduation and start a family with him? A classmate snatched my pre-filled college application form and gasped in shock. That caused quite a stir. It drew quite a crowd. Frowning, I solemnly tucked away my application form. My classmates wouldn't let it go, teasing me relentlessly. Later, "Didn't you say you wanted to quit school? What made you change your mind? Even if you changed your mind, shouldn't you be going to Shanghai with Jiang Jin? Why choose the capital instead?" To be honest, you don't want to marry Jiang Jin anymore. Think carefully, plenty of girls would kill to be with him. Jiang Jin's got top grades, movie star looks, and comes from a well-off family. He's the school heartthrob every girl adores. If not for our childhood betrothal arrangement, I'd never have gotten this close to Jiang Jin, I replied calmly. We were too young to understand back then, mistaking adults' playful remarks as serious promises. Now I just want to focus on my studies and realize my potential. My response drew laughter from classmates around us. Song Anren, even you don't believe what you're saying, do you? Jiang Jin just helped Lu Wanyuan with a few problems, and you're getting this jealous. How petty. Come on, even engaged couples fight and make up. If Jiang Jin hears you talking like this, he'll think you're being ridiculous. Perhaps I was too obvious about my feelings for Jiang Jin before. Now people distrust whatever I say. I won't bother explaining. Time will tell. Just then, the class bell rang. Jiang Jin entered the classroom with a group of classmates. His tall frame, chiseled features, deep-set eyes, and that distinctive air of scholarly refinement. He always stood out in a crowd, simply mesmerizing. Even after a lifetime of experience, my heart still pounds uncontrollably at the sight of Jiang Jin today. His gaze remained forward, but his hand slipped a white rabbit candy from his pocket onto my desk. My observant desk mate noticed immediately and gave me a knowing grin. See, Jiang Jin still cares about you. Quit being stubborn. Tear up that college application form already. When it's time to marry, just marry. If I were engaged to him, I'd ditch school this instant to keep his bed warm. My cheeks burned as memories of Jiang Jin kissing my lips countless times flooded my mind. I quickly pushed the white rabbit milk candy toward my deskmate. Here, you can have it. I don't like sweets. My deskmate froze. Seriously, you used to treasure everything Jiang Jin gave you like it was gold, and now you're just handing it over. I nodded impassively. Here, take it. Though my deskmate and I weren't being obvious, Jiang Jin behind us still noticed. The next moment, I heard Jiang Jin kick over his chair. Someone teased, "Young Master Jiang, seems you've angered your little missus." Jiang Jin scoffed, "If you don't speak, no one will mistake you for a mute." School was out. I handed the completed college preference form to the teacher. The teacher was momentarily taken aback by what I'd written, but said nothing. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and walked out of the school gate. Jiang Jin was already waiting at the school entrance. His eyes met mine with indifference before he turned on his heel and strode toward home. I trailed behind him, maintaining a careful distance. My parents died saving the Jiang family during the revolution. Old Master Jiang adopted me out of gratitude for my parents' sacrifice. At my parents' graveside, the patriarch vowed I'd be the only bride for the Jiang heir. This marks my 8th year living under the Jiang family's roof. Grandpa Jiang treated me very well, but Jiang's parents never liked me. They thought I wasn't good enough for Jiang Jin, nor worthy to be their daughter-in-law, even with the status of being their lifesaver. Despite decades of my devoted care, I still couldn't earn the slightest respect from Jiang's parents, so, when Lu Wanyuan interfered in my marriage with Jiang Jin, they wholeheartedly took her side. Wanyuan comes from a distinguished scholarly family, and she's now a renowned professor with students everywhere. What could you possibly compare to her? Your parents died saving us, we owe you that debt, but why drag Jiang Jin into this? You've held the title of Mrs. Jiang for all these years. Surely that's more than repaid any obligation, don't you think? Even the 2 children I bore have taken Lu Wenyuan's side. Aunt Lu is the only one worthy of our distinguished war hero father. A mere housewife like you should know your place, just sign the papers. Mom, if Dad truly loved you, he wouldn't have stayed away all these years. Let Dad have his happiness. He's devoted his life to this country. We shouldn't emotionally blackmail a national hero. Their every word cut me to the core, but I just can't accept this. Doesn't the saying go that a soldier's honor is shared equally by his wife? Why is it that in my case, I've become the source of Jiang Jin's misfortune? I packed my bags and headed for the border outpost. I must demand an answer from Jiang Jin. Why did you divorce me? But before I could reach him, I was caught in a landslide and died alone in those desolate mountains. Do you really want to go to Beijing? Before I knew it, Jiang Jin and I had already arrived home. He leaned against the doorway, standing a full head taller than me. I nodded. After careful consideration, I agree with what your parents said. We're still too young to take on the responsibilities of starting a family. His handsome face darkened as he narrowed his eyes. Don't you want to marry me anymore? How could I not want to, in this life or the last? My heart still races uncontrollably at Jiang Jin's every move. I just don't want to be trapped in a loveless marriage anymore. I want to stop loving, and I want to let go. More than anything, I want to stay away from all the Jiangs. I murmured aham, paying no attention to the shifting expressions on Jiang Jin's face. Then I headed into the kitchen to start the fire and cook. By the time the meal was served, Jiang's parents and grandfather had returned home. I portioned out rice for each of them in turn, too, as we were eating. Grandpa Jiang turned his gaze toward me. When I went to school today to handle your withdrawal procedures, your teacher mentioned you're planning to apply to Beijing Foreign Studies University, Mr. and Mrs. Jiang froze momentarily before simultaneously turning to look at me. Only Jiang Jin remained unfazed, continuing his meal in silence. I nodded. Understood. I'll prepare thoroughly for the exams, so we won't need to trouble grandfather about dropping out. Old man Jiang frowned deeply. Studying isn't bad, but, between you and Jiang Jin, Jiang's parents relaxed their expressions and quickly interjected. Father, young people having their own aspirations is wonderful. You shouldn't dampen their drive. Besides, women have equal rights now. There's no reason Jiang Jin can attend military academy while Anren can't pursue advanced education. The old man had no rebuttal. There was just a hint of heartache in the way they looked at me. I understood Grandpa Jiang wanted to give me shelter. Little did he know, in this household, he was the only one willing to protect me. Everyone had long treated me like discarded shoes. Just then, Jiang Jin spoke up. Forget whether you'll pass the exam or not. Even if you get into Beijing Foreign Studies, do you think the university will cover your living expenses? Mrs. Jiang paused, then caught on immediately. Exactly, Jin's military academy is tuition-free. But surely a foreign language school isn't. Song Anren, don't tell me you're expecting the Jiang family to keep supporting you after you turn 18, Mr. Jiang's brow furrowed as well. Before Grandpa Jiang could speak, I cut in. I can work part-time while studying, and the school offers student loans. I'll definitely be self-sufficient by then. I looked at Grandpa Jiang reassuringly. I'll study hard and aim for scholarships. You'll support me, won't you, Grandpa? And with that, the conversation ended. Grandpa Jiang could only heave a sigh. Jiang Jin, however, slammed his chopsticks down, his tone turning frostier. I'm done eating. I'll go review my lessons now. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang shot me a glare, blaming me for their son's lack of appetite. Grandpa Jiang said to me earnestly, since you've made your decision, focus on your exam preparation. We'll cross future bridges when we come to them. If you encounter any difficulties, just tell your grandpa." I nodded, gazing at this kind old man, wishing time would slow its pace, so I could have more opportunities to show him my filial devotion. I washed all the dishes and utensils clean. With a heart full of gratitude, I helped Grandpa Jiang soak his feet. Only then did I find time to return to my room and review my studies. But the moment I stepped inside, Jiang Jin pinned me against the door, his piercing gaze holding me captive with unmistakable possessiveness. "The one who kept swearing to marry me, what's this now? Off to the capital for further studies, no longer willing to bear my children." My cheeks burned as I struggled. "Let me go," he scoffed coldly before leaning down to press his lips against mine. "This kind of thing, not the first time this has happened." Back then, I'd always get completely consumed by it, even when terrified, even when anxious. But for love, I charged ahead without hesitation. I refused to be his puppet any longer. In a fit of rage, I bit his lip till it bled. He recoiled in pain, pulling away abruptly. His deep-set eyes bore into me. "You used to love my kisses. What's changed? Even if you're not ready to marry me yet, must you recoil like this?" I tried to push him away, but his strength overwhelmed me. He effortlessly swept me up and settled me across his lap. "If this is about Lu Wenyuan's confession, let me explain." I turned her down firmly. "You can ask her yourself if you don't believe me." Lu Wenyuan had even confessed her feelings to him. But what did it matter if he rejected her? Lu Wenyuan proved far more resilient than he'd imagined. Not long after he enrolled in the Whampoa Military Academy, Lu Wenyuan would follow him to Shanghai Normal University. The entanglement between them was only just beginning. I suddenly felt wronged. The grievances of past lives and present intertwine. He was the one who started this, so why am I the only one drowning in it? All those years of marriage, how could he remain so indifferent? Does he have a heart of stone? Why the tears now? My eyes grew misty, his expression softened, the earlier sternness melting away. A long moment passed. He let out a quiet sigh. "I know what you're thinking. You're afraid I'll leave you after going to Shanghai, aren't you? Don't worry. I've already promised Grandpa we'll get married right after my exams. I'll do my best to get you pregnant before I leave for Shanghai. The title of Mrs. Jiang will be yours without a doubt." She barely managed to hold back the tears threatening to fall. At last, I voiced the question that had haunted me through lifetimes. "If you never loved me, why insist on marrying me? Why keep me trapped in the Jiang household?" He froze, his expression tensing. Even the arm encircling my waist loosened slightly. I seized the moment to stand up, putting a good distance between us. He frowned. "This isn't about love. You're my wife. That was decided years ago." I met his gaze calmly. "So you married me just to fulfill Grandpa's promise at my parents' grave. This marriage is nothing but an obligation he forced on you." He remained silent, his thin lips pressed tightly together. I took a deep breath. "You're a man, and I'm a woman who's not entirely unattractive. Maybe you have some feelings for me, but that's just adolescent restlessness talking. You've never truly understood who I am, nor let me into your heart. Physical attraction isn't love, so let's end it here." The air froze for a moment. I heard Jiang Jin give a soft chuckle. "Fine, let's end it here." The door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. Jiang Jin stormed out. Yet this little incident didn't ruffle my composure. I picked up my textbook and began reviewing the key exam materials methodically. Get out through exams. It was my only way to leave the Jiang family and escape Jiang Jin. The next day, Jiang Jin didn't wait for me to go to school together. As I walked through the school gates with a classmate I'd run into, Lu Wenyuan came up beside me. She raised an eyebrow and asked, "Heard you're calling off the wedding with Jiang Jin." I ignored her. She chuckled mockingly. "At least you know your place. You're utterly unworthy of Jiang Jin. Even if you forced your way into marrying him, you'd just end up a neglected wife." I kept walking toward the classroom without breaking stride. She persisted relentlessly, as if determined to see me lose my composure. "Yesterday, Jiang Jin and I kissed in the grove. He accepted my confession and promised to propose to my family after I moved to Shanghai." I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "What's so funny?" "Nothing. It's just that Jiang Jin told me yesterday he rejected your confession." For a moment I couldn't tell which of you was lying. Her face instantly turned crimson. The classmates around me started jeering too. "Lu Wenyuan, stop making a fool of yourself. Song Anren is Jiang Jin's fiancé. Even if they're not married yet, they're still engaged. Are you really that desperate to be the other woman?" Lu Wenyuan clenched her teeth. "What engagement? That's feudal superstition. We believe in free love now." It's Song Anran who's trapping Jiangjin, holding his marriage hostage. My classmates still wanted to stand up for me. I stopped my classmate. I declared solemnly, "You're right. Nowadays we believe in free love. My engagement with Jiangjin is just feudal superstition. Therefore, I hereby declare our betrothal null and void. You're free to pursue him without reservations." Lu Wanyuan froze, and the surrounding classmates were stunned. Song Anran, are you serious? I mean every word. With that, I lifted my head and walked into the classroom. Unfortunately, Jiangjin stood not far away, his piercing gaze so intense it felt like drilling holes through me. Lu Wanyuan spotted Jiangjin and immediately rushed to his side, afraid Jiangjin might have missed my words. She rushed to repeat them, but Jiangjin cut her off abruptly. Lu Wanyuan, does your confession from yesterday still stand? Lu Wanyuan froze for 3 seconds before nodding vigorously. Of course. Jiangjin locked eyes with me, his words gritted through clenched teeth. Then from this moment on, you're my girlfriend, he spoke while closing in on me, until he stood right before me. With deliberate contempt, he curled his lips into a smirk and sneered, perfect, finally free from that damned engagement. I raised my eyes, meeting his gaze with a faint smile. I said, well, Jiangjin, you're finally free, he scoffed. Yeah, after all these years of you pestering me, I can finally breathe easy. The class bell rang. I took my seat without another word. Lu Wanyuan seized the moment before the teacher arrived to move her seat next to Jiangjin. My deskmate asked, are you really giving up on Jiangjin? I nodded. What else? I'm only 18, should I bear his children, wait on his parents, and become his housemaid? I'm not that stupid. After that day, Jiangjin and Lu Wanyuan were often together. They went to and from school together, studied and learned side by side. They often displayed affectionate gestures in front of me, passing water bottles, feeding each other, helping with homework. They looked utterly devoted. Many classmates asked me if Jiangjin was really dating Lu Wanyuan. I'm not sure about that. Many classmates advised me not to clash with Jiangjin, warning that Lu Wanyuan might actually steal him away. I remained non-committal about it. If something can be taken away, perhaps it was never truly mine to begin with. News of their intimate relationship eventually reached the Jiang family's ears. Lu Wanyuan's parents were renowned professors, and every uncle, aunt, and relative in her family was someone of consequence. Upon closer examination, Lu Wanyuan's family background outshone Jiangjin's. After conducting their investigation, Zhang's parents took an immediate liking to Lu Wanyuan. Though they understood old Master Zhang's feelings all too well, they had no choice but to suppress their own joy. This continued until grandfather Jiang fell gravely ill and passed away. The seventh-day mourning rites had just concluded. The Jiang family began frequently inviting Lu Wanyuan to visit their home. They even invited Lu Wanyuan to stay at their home. Their words and actions all implied Lu Wanyuan would become the Jiang family's future daughter-in-law. Lu Wanyuan was overjoyed. She'd deliberately come to flaunt it in front of me. I stayed silent. Grandpa Jiang is a man of principle, but raising you all these years has repaid his debt to your parents. You should know your place, don't you think? The Jiang family doesn't like me, I'm well aware. After the exams, I'll be marrying Jiangjin, so I suppose you won't be staying for our wedding. Will you? I still need to work to pay for my tuition. Naturally wouldn't stay. Yet Jiangjin, who'd always obeyed his elders, suddenly grew rebellious. 3. Using his grandfather's passing as an excuse for mourning, he firmly refused to marry Lu Wanyuan. Night fell. Even in the dead of night, he crept into my room, pinned me to the bed, firing accusations at me. Are you just waiting to see me make a fool of myself? He laughed bitterly. As the only son, they never wanted me to go to military academy, always afraid something might happen to me. That's why my parents tolerated our marriage and children, even though they never liked you. Now with Lu Wanyuan appearing, her family background has them absolutely smitten. There's no escaping this arranged marriage. I pushed him away with visible irritation. Lu Wanyuan's looks and family background are more than enough for you. Why can't you be satisfied? He scoffed, his eyes bloodshot. I'd rather be marrying you, Song Anran. You used to listen to whatever I said or did. Now you don't even show a hint of jealousy when I'm this close with Lu Wanyuan. When did your heart change? How did things change so suddenly? Perhaps it was the absence of respect in his eyes when he looked at me. Maybe it was discovering those love letters he wrote to Lu Wanyuan. Years of wasted time eventually wore away all my affection for him. If marriage feels like too much for you right now, would you let me court you first? Don't go to Beijing. Shanghai has foreign language universities too. we could go there together, Song Anran, you have a place in my heart. It was the first time I'd heard such ardent words from Jeonjin, his eyes reddened with sincerity and hopeful anticipation, a youth's love, open and pure as daylight. But Jeonjin, I stopped loving you long ago, in my past life. I had already fallen out of love with you on the way to the border. The mudslide also happened during my return journey. Being buried in those mountains was the price for my reckless haste to return and sign the divorce papers, ignoring the weather warnings. Because I realized, traveling alone feels remarkably lighthearted, freed from family obligations. I discovered how breathtaking the roadside scenery truly is, so before even reaching the border, I'd already mapped out a grand tour across our homeland, such is the irony of fate. But now, I'll never walk that path again, caring for in-laws, raising children, and nurturing grandchildren. Gazing at the young and handsome Jeonjin, the flutter in my heart had grown calmer with each passing day. Alright, I'll go to Shanghai with you, I responded in a calm tone. The corners of his lips lifted slightly, and a glimmer flickered in his eyes. He held me tight, once more, his lips brushed against my forehead. He turned to leave. Unfortunately, he ran into Lu Wanyuan, who had been looking for him. Lu Wanyuan immediately burst into tears. Jeonjin frowned, wanting to say something but at a loss for words. All I heard was Lu Wanyuan declare, Jeonjin, you've stolen my heart, and I won't let this go. Even if I can't marry you now, even if your heart belongs to another, I'll fight for you, she vowed with conviction, not a trace of hesitation, and in Jeonjin's eyes, I glimpsed a flicker of emotion. So that's how it is, those years. Perhaps it was through these subtle moments of tenderness that Lu Wanyuan gradually found her way into Jeonjin's heart. Jeonjin began keeping his distance from Lu Wanyuan. He started waiting to walk me to and from school, get me breakfast, snacks, and drinks. Jeonjin's kindness toward me has become more obvious than ever. Lu Wanyuan watched from the side, her eyes filled with envy and jealousy. My deskmate looked puzzled. Isn't Jeonjin dating Lu Wanyuan? Why is he bringing you food and drinks? I chuckled. Who knows, men can be so fickle-minded. My deskmate frowned. Jeonjin wouldn't do that. He seems like such a decent guy, I said. Appearances can be deceiving. P.E. class. I skipped outdoor activities and stayed in the classroom reviewing my textbooks instead. On the basketball court, Jeonjin kept scoring, sending the girls into screaming fits. Many female classmates handed their water bottles to Jeonjin. Jeonjin scanned the crowd looking for me, but I wasn't there, so he took the water glass Lu Wanyuan handed him and drank. This scene, sitting in the classroom, I saw everything clearly. As Jeonjin returned to the basketball court, Lu Wanyuan strutted into the classroom with smug satisfaction and took the seat right in front of me. Jeonjin turned down my parents' marriage proposal. But that doesn't mean you two can be together. I nodded. True enough, she scoffed. Even if you follow him to Shanghai, his military academy's strict rules won't allow frequent meetings. But I'm different. My uncle's an instructor at Whampoa. I can visit Jeonjin anytime on campus. When the time comes, who do you think he'll choose? I looked at her and said, don't worry, I won't be going to Shanghai. She froze. Not Shanghai. Don't tell me you're actually going to Beijing. I set down my pen and spoke earnestly. Wherever I end up, I won't go to Shanghai or marry Jeonjin. But you know how he is. What he can't have becomes irresistible. The more I reject him, the more persistent he gets. Just bear with it a little longer. The exams are in a month, and after that I'll disappear where no one can find me, not even Jeonjin. Lu Wanyuan looked skeptical. You're just being difficult again, saying this on purpose. I chuckled, believe it or not. But I suggest you dial back the attention on Jeonjin for now. The guy's kind of a jerk. The more you chase after him, the less he cares. Keep some distance, and he'll actually learn to appreciate you. Lu Wanyuan didn't take my advice. Instead, she started hovering around Jeonjin even more. Meanwhile, Jeonjin kept pestering me non-stop. The three of us kept showing up together at various events, making everyone around us raise their eyebrows in disapproval. My deskmate kept clicking her tongue in astonishment. This love triangle of yours is truly baffling. How can you stay so indifferent when Lu Wanyuan keeps pushing like this? If it were me, I'd have Jeonjin kick her out immediately. If Jeonjin's too shy to speak up, you could always chase her away as his fiancé. Since when did you become such a pushover? I shook my head. If Jeonjin wanted her gone, he wouldn't need me to say anything. Besides, I've told you, I'm not his fiancé. The sidewalk belongs to everyone. There's no reason I can walk here while others can't. My deskmate looked stunned. You're really that broad-minded? I shook my head. I tapped my English vocabulary book. We made a deal about getting into Beijing foreign studies together. Finished memorizing your words yet? Shouldn't you be studying instead of gossiping with me? My deskmate grimaced at the vocabulary book, muttering, abandon, give up, leave. I glanced at the exam countdown on the blackboard. Just 1 week left. The exam had just ended. Jiang Jin received the admission letter from Shanghai's Whampoa Military Academy. He dragged me to the department store to shop for my Shanghai wardrobe. He picked out all sorts of outfits, shoes, and bags for me. We stopped in front of a jewelry store. He had his eye on a diamond ring. Boss, let me take a look at this one. The shopkeeper chuckled when he saw us two students. Matching wedding bands are all the rage now. This would be perfect for your girlfriend. Show your student ID for an extra discount. He took my hand to try it on. I protested. Don't buy it, it's too expensive. Besides, we're still students. And this isn't appropriate. His eyes sparkled as he gazed at me. Why not? You're my fiancé. It's only right for you to wear the ring I gave you in advance. And so, the ring slid onto my ring finger. Its cold touch once again sent my thoughts adrift. Before his trip to Shanghai, I helped him shop for all the essentials he needed. Passing by the store, my eyes were drawn to this diamond ring displayed in the window. I said I wanted it. He said it wasn't necessary, but this time, he actually offered to buy me this ring. Well, that's strange. Another week of waiting passed. The admission letter from Beijing finally arrived in my hands. The moment I received the letter, I packed my bags and boarded the train to Beijing. I told no one, left without a note. Alone, I witnessed the landscape shift from south to north. Unlike the watery south, the northern air is bone-dry. I struggled to adjust at first, but as time went by, through the grind of working while studying, my frostbitten hands and chapped face no longer concern me. I must devote every ounce of my energy to this, for, only by becoming stronger myself, can I break free from these shackles and escape life's miseries. The second semester of freshman year, I received a letter from Shanghai. Inside the envelope were 100 yuan and a letter. The letter was sent from Jiang Jin. He said, I don't know what happened between us that made you unwilling to even tell me about your decision not to come to Shanghai. Had you insisted on going to Beijing back then, I could have changed my plans to follow you there. Perhaps my love wasn't enough to make you feel secure, and for that I'm sorry. For years, my damned pride and so-called masculine dignity kept me from expressing my true feelings. From now on, I hope Miss Anren will give Jiang Jin a proper chance to pursue you. This 100 yuan was his monthly stipend from the school. He said since I chose to pursue further education, I should focus on my studies and not let life's difficulties distract me. He insisted I take this money as a loan, urging me to accept it, but I don't want to accept it. Jiang Jin is the persistent type who won't take no for an answer. Once you're deeply involved with him, it's hard to break free. The money he sends every month, I send everything back to the Jiang family untouched. Perhaps it happened too often. Jiang Jin eventually found out I hadn't touched the money he sent me. Only the letter remained in his envelope. In the letter, he mentioned having a recurring dream. In the dream, we got married, had children, and shared brief moments of happiness, but he never made it home from border duty, leaving me to struggle through life alone. Then he'd wake relieved. It was just a dream. He'd never let me become a household drudge. He promised to protect me and make me happy. Happiness from others isn't dependable. Only happiness you hold in your own hands lasts. The first semester of my junior year, I've won scholarships for 2 consecutive years. Most of my daily life issues have been resolved. Now I can focus more on studies, even having spare time for international student exchange events. Countless diplomatic engagements have truly taught me the meaning of statecraft. All because of language barriers. Stories of our national leaders enduring humiliations during overseas visits circulate widely at foreign language institutes. Our professors often stand at the lectern visibly seething with indignation. They used the language barrier as an excuse to refuse communication, so we spoke their language to establish diplomatic ties. They dismissed Chinese as insignificant, so we demonstrated its profound depth in their own tongue. We study foreign languages to understand their culture, analyze their core, adopt strengths while discarding weaknesses, making them clearly comprehend China's resurgence. Our new China has risen, and we too can say no. When it comes to national defense, language exchange is often the step with the least cost. Senior year internship. I had the privilege of attending study sessions hosted by several Chinese foreign language universities in the U.S. Coincidentally, Lu Wanyuan was also there. She greeted me first, her eyes still holding that same old look of utter disdain. Never thought you'd actually let go of Jianjin. First thing she mentions, still Jianjin. I responded with perfect composure. Her mouth never stops running, so much resentment in those words. After Jianjin found out you weren't in Shanghai, he made several trips to Beijing looking for you. But he never dared to actually meet you, afraid you'd cut ties with him if you did. How ironic. You weren't even that into him before, yet now you've got him acting like a lovesick puppy. I tried changing the subject by asking how she'd been lately, but she couldn't go 3 words without mentioning Jianjin. What could possibly be new with me? Still orbiting around Jianjin like a satellite. My parents made me take this trip because they couldn't stand watching me mope over some man day after day. As she spoke, tears began rolling down her cheeks. I've wondered if I was too clingy, making him think I'm cheap, so for a while, I deliberately kept my distance. 3 whole months, I didn't reach out, and he didn't bother contacting me once. He's nothing like the pushover you described. What do you have that I don't? Why does Jianjin keep rejecting me? I don't get it. I had my uncle arrange a post for him in Shanghai's military. He refused. As a compromise, I could have secured him a position in Beijing. Since you're there, he was tempted, but after thinking it over, he still turned me down, said he didn't want to owe me or have any ties to me, even claimed that in some past life, just exchanging a single letter with me made you furious. He's into you, only you. Half the time, I can't even follow his logic. I suspect he's just making up excuses to reject me. Song Yanran, I'm done competing. Just patch things up with Jianjin. I can't stand seeing him moping over you. If you ask him to stay in Beijing, he will. Otherwise, if he really goes to the borderlands, chances to meet again in this lifetime will be slim. Those regions are dangerous. How could you bear to let him go? I listened quietly as she finished speaking. We finished the meal in silence. In the end, I never reached out to Jianjin. I don't know how much of his dreams were about me, but I know this much. His dreams could only come true at the frontier. To bind someone with possessive love, how terribly narrow-minded. The year 1988, I've become a seasoned diplomat. At every major diplomatic event, I naturally become the center of attention. International journalists have hailed me as China's most graceful yet formidable steel magnolia, just as my mentors taught me. We must speak in terms they understand. Today's China is nobody's pushover. The year 2000, I was assigned to visit the United Nations. General Jianjin was assigned as my security detail. After concluding a series of diplomatic meetings, we waited in the departure lounge for our flight home. He stood right beside me, as tall and dazzling as ever. We're like strangers who've never met. He's carrying out his orders. I'm completing my mission. Not a single word was exchanged. Not bad. He guards his kingdom. I defend my honor. We were each on our own path. 5, steady and sure-footed in our strides. Had it not been for that sudden assassination, I might never have heard those choked questions trembling in his voice. The instant the gunshot rang out, Jianjin shielded me in his embrace. Immediately, we were engulfed in the chaos of battle. I pressed desperately against Jianjin's chest as blood gushed forth, my heart trembling with terror. He gazed at me with tender amusement. You're all grown up now. Yet still shedding tears like a child, I struggled to compose myself, but the tears kept flowing uncontrollably. I'm sorry for making you cry again. I failed to protect you in our past life, and now I've disturbed your peace in this one. Don't cry. Taking a bullet for you would be my greatest honor. I stood there stunned. I couldn't help but wonder if he, like me, had also been reborn. Then I heard him say, "Remember that dream I told you about before? Over the years it's become clearer. I dreamed you sacrificed your own happiness for my parents, for our child. I dreamed Lu Wanyuan came to force you into divorce, and you trembled with sobs. That made me reconsider whether I could truly bring you happiness. Turns out I couldn't. I'm sorry for all those empty promises." The crimson grew more vivid. My clothes were already soaked through. His breathing grew fainter by the moment, yet stubbornly, he kept speaking. "Song Yanran, I've always wondered why you left me. This dream finally made me understand. Thank God you never agreed to marry me. I'd never forgive myself otherwise. You looked so radiant at that diplomatic podium, absolutely dazzling. I used to brag to my comrades that you were my girl. Haha, cough. Don't be mad, just soldiers talk, cough." I held him as tears fell like rain. "The doctor's coming any second now. Don't you dare close your eyes. I forbid you to die. Without you, who'll have my back? Weak nations get no say in diplomacy. truth only exists within the range of your artillery. All these years, I'd never have dared point fingers at those foreigners without you behind me. You must live. The mission of building a strong military for our nation still rests on your shoulders." He gripped my hand, his eyelids unbearably heavy. Finally, in the faintest whisper, he told me, "Don't worry, my comrades will protect you now." They're as steadfast as I was. Just focus on being the most radiant, most formidable rose. After Jiang Jin's death, awarded military honors, after attending his funeral, I embarked on an overseas interview journey. The officer assigned as my escort was my military academy classmate and comrade from Jiangjin. When we flew abroad together, he kept rambling on about Jiang Jin's stories. Back in college, Jiang Jin had tons of admirers but turned them all down. Sometimes I wondered if he had a thing for me. Scared the hell out of me for 4 whole years. There was this girl Lu Wanyuan who kept pestering him to marry her. He got so annoyed that he'd always make me take his place when she asked him out to eat. Then somehow, I ended up marrying Lu Wanyuan and having kids with her. Life works in mysterious ways. Ambassador Song, you're the goddess of our military. Half the troops have a crush on you, Jiangjin included. He even claimed you 2 used to date. None of us bought that crap from our resident bullshitter. Haha, sigh, he said. Everyone in the cabin had tears in their eyes. Looking at the soldiers who all bore resemblance to Jiangjin, my heart swelled with emotion. Jiangjin was right. He and his comrades will always stand guard, for me, for the people, for our nation. Story 2. My brother has hated me for 7 years. The last time, I quarreled with him and left angrily on a rainy night, accidentally fell into the river and suffered memory loss. In the hospital, he was relieved and casually pointed to a terminally ill patient, saying, "That's your real brother. Make sure you recognize this clearly, and don't bother me again." The pale-faced man approached and gently patted my head. "Let's go then. Big brother will take you home." Later, to save my terminally ill big brother, I braved snow-blocked roads to fetch a renowned doctor and stayed up countless nights with him, even at the cost of half my life. My elder brother stopped me in the freezing snow, his voice trembling with panic. "Have you really forgotten me?" The doctor declared my memory was disordered when I first woke up in the hospital bed. Falling from a great height into the river caused a cerebral concussion, and I was unconscious for over half a month. Half a month ago, I had a huge argument with my elder brother Gu Nanzhao. As I slammed the door to leave, I shouted angrily, "I'd rather die than let you collect my corpse." Gu Nanzhao's face was contorted with rage as he sneered behind me. "Then I hope you get what you wish for." And now, half a month later, I'm still alive. Opening my eyes, the early winter sunlight streamed through the hospital room window. After a long moment of dazed vision, I finally began to hear, outside the hospital room. The doctor was speaking to Gu Nanzhao. 1. Head trauma, prolonged unconsciousness, memory loss or confusion are both possible. Not only might I forget my loved ones, I might not even remember myself. I struggled out of bed, wanting to go out and explain that my memory wasn't failing. I hate being hospitalized. I don't want to be trapped in the hospital because of this diagnosis. As I approached the door, I heard Gu Nanzhao's cold, deep voice. His tone seemed to carry something else, perhaps even something akin to delight. This could be considered a good thing. As if to confirm the doctor's words, he added, "She woke up groggily once last night, looked at me and asked who I was." I vaguely recalled the scene of briefly waking up last night. Gu Nanzhao was right, but at that time, I only asked him that because I was disoriented and couldn't clearly see faces in my blurred vision. The hand gripping the doorknob froze momentarily. The doctor spoke reassuringly, "There's no need to rush. We can only confirm after your sister wakes up. Even if there are memory issues, we can still." Then, it was Gu Nanzhao who interrupted the doctor's words. "Forgetting is good, no need to help her recover." I even detected a trace of unconcealed delight in his tone. "Is that how it is? Hoping I'd forget about him, all these years, after Mom and Dad passed away. I've argued with him countless times, but in this world, he's the only family I have left. I've thought about death as an easy way out. Now that I've survived a brush with death, I hope to talk with him again." Open the door. I met a momentarily startled gaze outside the door, which quickly turned cold, because I'd been unconscious for too long. When I spoke, my voice was somewhat hoarse. "Brother, actually Gu Nanzhao quickly furrowed his brows, looking at me in disbelief. Soon, it seemed as if he was deceiving himself. He concluded that I must have lost my memory and was randomly calling him brother. There were many patients coming and going in the corridor. He seemed eager to shake me off, even reaching out to randomly point at a passing patient without looking, saying, "That's your brother." For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Stunned, I looked at him and asked, "What?" In Gunanjao's eyes, there was a fleeting hesitation and struggle. "We've been siblings for over 20 years. No matter how much he hates or resents me, I still can't believe he would push me toward a complete stranger while I'm still recovering from my injuries. I think it's really time for us to have a proper talk." I was about to speak, no longer wanting to sulk. He suddenly spoke again, cutting me off. I said, "That's your real brother, get it straight, don't call people randomly, and don't bother me again, this time." He seemed to have made up his mind, when signaling to the man who had stopped again. There was no hesitation left in his expression. The doctor, seemingly afraid to speak out of turn, had already left. The corridor was bustling with people, and various gazes were directed at me. It seems I truly am the fool who lost his mind after falling into the water, unable to even recognize my own elder brother. The man identified as my brother leaned against the wall, standing at the other end of the corridor. His figure was tall and slender, with striking features, yet unable to conceal the excessive pallor in his complexion. Any normal person would feel anger upon hearing such absurd accusations, but he just calmly looked at Gunanjao through the passing crowd, then turned his gaze to me. It seemed like he was waiting for us to continue speaking. Gunanjao spoke coldly again, "I'm just an ordinary friend of your brother, here to visit you out of courtesy. Go find him yourself. Whether he acknowledges you as his sister or not is between you two." As he finished speaking, he turned and walked toward the end of the corridor, leaving without hesitation. My hand hanging by my side trembled uncontrollably, even though I kept telling myself that his hatred for me was nothing new. It was just losing a brother who despised me. After all, we had never gotten along properly all these years, yet the rims of my eyes still uncontrollably reddened. Bewilderment, humiliation, resentment, and fury, emotions tangled together. In the end, I couldn't utter another word. Watching Gunanjao leave, my vision blurred momentarily as I hastily reached out to steady myself against the doorframe. A buzzing sound filled my ears, leaving me dazed for quite some time. The man who had been silently watching suddenly reacted. He released his hand from the wall and walked toward me. For a moment, I even thought he was coming to accuse us of staging the accident. Gunanjao left, so he could only scold me. Instinctively, I wanted to take a step back. But perhaps it was due to being unconscious for too long, coupled with sudden emotional turmoil. My body felt weak, and I couldn't lift my foot. Then, I realized belatedly, a hand landed on my head. I felt as if he had hit me, but the touch was so light, it seemed he had merely patted my head. It took me a while before I finally heard his voice, weary yet gentle. "Let's go then, I'll take you home, little brother." How many years had it been since Gunanjao last called himself my elder brother? Too long, I can't even remember anymore. I looked up blankly. I'd been quarreling with him for years, for so many years, ever since my parents passed away. I think I might have truly gone mad. I looked at this unfamiliar man whom I had never seen before. I nodded again and said, "All right." I followed a stranger back to an unfamiliar home. The interior was so clean and desolate that it even felt somewhat eerie. Everywhere was spotless, devoid of any living presence. Like the man's excessively pale and lifeless face, many years ago, I might have been afraid, too, but now, life and death no longer matter to me. There is nothing left for me to fear. I look around, then I glance at the coffee table, where several small white medicine bottles are placed. Those bottles are very familiar to me. They contain the same medicine I used to hoard. It's a pity doctors are always so cautious. No matter what excuses I make, like insomnia or stress, they're never willing to give me a couple extra pills. I've been saving for nearly half a year, and only managed to accumulate a little over 10 tablets. I stare at those medicine bottles. Somewhat amusingly, I actually felt an instinctive envy. That amount would be enough to die. Beside the medicine bottle lay a photograph, somewhat peculiar, roughly 12 inches in size, in black and white. The man in the photo looks at the camera, calm and expressionless. The photo was so conspicuous that I couldn't help but take another look. I glanced sideways at the man standing beside me, whose expression was almost identical to the one in the photo. Even after being seen with such a thing, the man's expression remained unchanged. He calmly walked over to the coffee table and casually put the medicine bottle and photo into the drawer. Then said gently, "Sit down, I'll go cook for you." Oh, he really seemed to believe it, that there was something wrong with my brain, making me forget my own brother. I regained some of my rationality. Deceiving someone who already wants to die carries a certain guilt in one's conscience. I want to explain before leaving. Recalling that photo, those pills, suddenly, I became curious about what misfortunes he had experienced that would make him, like me, want to end his life. And how did he manage to buy those drugs? As if possessed, I sat down. The man went into the kitchen, saying he would cook, but there was no movement for a long time. Feeling puzzled, I got up and walked to the kitchen door. I saw him open the refrigerator door, staring blankly inside. The huge refrigerator was as empty as the house, not even a single ingredient, not even a bottle of water. Clearly, no fire had been lit in this kitchen for a long time. There wasn't even a pot on the gas stove. Only an earthen jar remained, likely used for brewing medicine or similar purposes. It took him a long while to finally snap out of his daze. Avert your gaze from the refrigerator and look at me again. The man spoke with a hint of guilt. Sorry, I forgot to buy groceries. I'll go out for a bit. Over these years, I've often looked at my reflection in the mirror, feeling like I'm clearly still alive, yet also like a soul that's lost its breath and floated up into midair. And now, I suddenly realized, there was actually someone in this world who resembled a corpse more than I did. He walked past me and continued outside. I couldn't even hear his footsteps or sense the slightest trace of his breath. It suddenly occurred to me that perhaps this complete stranger would never come back, just like that night when I quarreled with Gu Nanzhao and then fell into the river. Both Gu Nanzhao and the doctor believed it was because the rain was too heavy that night, and the bridge was too slippery. I accidentally fell in, but I know deep down, it's not. The man walked to the entranceway, about to step out. I looked at his back and suddenly said, I like eating fish. The figure at the entrance froze abruptly. He halted his steps and turned around, still looking at me calmly and lifelessly. What? I met his gaze and repeated, I said, I want to eat fish. Brother, could you cook fish for dinner tonight? The front door was left open. The early winter evening was windy, and a cold breeze rushed in through the door. The hem of his coat fluttered, and his already messy bangs became even more disheveled, making his face appear even more deathly pale. The man's palm hanging at his side seemed to tremble slightly. After a long pause, he responded, I watched him leave, then the door closed. In that case, he'll probably come back, right? Thinking about it, I found it truly ridiculous. I'm someone who's about to go seek death myself, yet here I am, seemingly still concerned about the life or death of a stranger. I sat back on the sofa, and as soon as I closed my eyes, those images flooded back. My parents, who should have been safe and sound, were buried beneath the rubble, yet I was rescued, surviving to this day by stepping over my parents' 2 lives. The scene shifted to Gu Nanzhao's eyes filled with resentment, the sound of gnashing teeth. Gu Nanzhao, you're the one who deserves to die. It's only right that you're dead, Gu Nanzhao. After all these years, have you truly lived with a clear conscience? I have no peace in my heart. So all these years, I've never had a single night of truly peaceful sleep, trapped in a nightmare. It took me a long while to struggle awake. Opening my eyes, I looked toward the closed drawer beneath the coffee table. As if my hand had a will of its own, it reached over, silently opened the drawer again, and took out those medicine bottles. I've never stolen anything in my life, so when I reached out, even my palm quickly became damp. But I had carefully checked the dosage of this medication. I'll use half and leave the other half for him. As for the remainder, if he truly wishes to end his life, it should suffice. My consciousness was somewhat scattered as I tried to comfort myself while trembling hands opened a medicine bottle. The phone left on the coffee table suddenly rang. The abrupt sound almost exploded in the deathly silent living room. It nearly made me drop the medicine bottle in my hand. I felt extremely guilty. In a fluster, I dropped the medicine bottle and reached for the phone. Only after answering did I suddenly realize this wasn't my phone. The man had left his phone at home when he went out. The call connected. An infuriated voice immediately came through. I'm telling you, Pei Yan, you can't keep a single cent of that 700 million from me. Not a chance. Even if I didn't raise you, I still fathered you. That cheap sister of yours died for you. As the father, inheriting my terminally ill son's property is only right and proper. Want to donate it all. Keep dreaming. I didn't mean to pry into others' private affairs, but their emotional outburst was simply too intense, their words too rapid. By the time I came to my senses and hastily hung up the phone, I had already heard quite a bit. A slip of paper had fallen onto the carpet. It seemed to have been pulled out from the drawer when I hurriedly took out the medicine bottle earlier. It was a diagnosis slip for end-stage heart failure, with the patient's name field reading Pei Yin. The name sounded vaguely familiar, identical to the one angrily mentioned during the phone call earlier. It took me a moment to recall. I'd recently seen it trending online. 3. The founder and CEO of Yenqing Technology abruptly announced plans to sell the company at the peak of its success. A hasty sale at this juncture would undoubtedly be disadvantageous. In the news, when the media swarms in, the man was like that too, lifeless and expressionless, only a brief response, a bit tired, want to rest. So, it was him after all. It turned out he intended to end his life because of a terminal illness. How unpredictable life can be. Healthy people want to die, while those with thriving careers are struck by terminal illnesses. I carefully picked up the document, along with the medicine bottle. It was placed back in the drawer. Stealing medicine from a terminally ill patient to take. I'm afraid even if I get my wish and go to hell, the king of hell would spit in disgust. The sky darkened as rain began to fall outside the window. Raindrops pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows as the downpour intensified, until the last glimmer of daylight faded. There was still no movement at the entrance. Could he really have died out there, after an internal struggle? He finally got up and stepped out the door. The car is still parked in the front yard. He left on foot. Without his phone, he couldn't hail a taxi, at least not before leaving the villa area. Perhaps he didn't go too far. I took an umbrella and went out, leaving the villa area. I hailed a taxi again and asked the driver to take me to the nearest mall. Actually, I thought perhaps he hadn't returned so late because he went out to buy fish, but I still wanted to look for him. The weather was cold, and there were fewer people in the mall than usual. I searched floor by floor, but didn't see any trace of that person. Just as I was thinking about trying another mall to continue my search, behind me, a cold and angry voice suddenly rang out. Who told you to follow me here? It was Gunanzhao's voice. I turned around. There stood Gunanzhao with a cold expression, glaring at me disapprovingly from not far away. Beside him was Linanen, the daughter of a CEO with whom he recently collaborated on a major project. While negotiating a business deal, he somehow ended up gaining a sworn little sister. The other company's CEO kept praising him as warm-hearted and kind, but only I knew he was never that type of person. He just didn't like me, his own younger sister. My heart felt like it was soaked in water. Aching with a sour swelling, it took me many years to adjust, about the brother who used to always accompany and indulge me, complying with my every whim. Later, he came to despise me utterly, hurling harsh words my way, yet in the end, I still could never truly get used to it or remain unaffected. I remained silent for a long while before barely suppressing that discomfort in my heart. Clutching the umbrella tightly in my hand, I tried my best to remain calm as I looked at him and said, I wasn't following you. I came here to find someone. Gunanzhao's eyes burned with even greater fury. A place you'd never come before. If not following me, who else could you possibly be looking for? As soon as he finished speaking, behind him, I saw that familiar figure. To be honest, I still couldn't quite recall the face of that man named Pei Yin, but it would be hard to find another person whose face could be so pale and lifeless. He stood there, at a distance neither too far nor too close. He didn't come any closer, still looking at me calmly. It seemed he quite liked it this way, watching me from a little further away. Gunanzhao, receiving no response from me for a while, frowned and said, I'm talking to you. Stop following me secretly. I'm not your brother, understand? Pei Yin was holding a plastic bag in his hand. The transparent bag revealed the processed fish inside. After being out for over 3 hours, he actually went to buy fish, for no reason. I suddenly remembered many years ago, late at night, I pestered Gunanzhao, saying I wanted to eat the handmade osmanthus cakes from that shop in the east of the city. He scolded me with a stern face, saying kids who eat sweets at night will get cavities. Besides, it's late at night, and the pastry shop has long been closed. In the middle of the night, he returned covered in the chill of the night, sneaking into my bedroom quietly, hiding it from Mom and Dad. The osmanthus cake tucked in his embrace was still warm. He sternly admonished me, saying, this is the last time, but later, there would still be countless last times. I pulled back my thoughts and looked at the fish again. Suddenly, I let out a soft chuckle. Gunanzhao looked at me as if he'd seen a ghost. Following my gaze to look behind him, his expression instantly turned shocked and furious. Why is this man still here? I finally withdrew my gaze and gave him an answer. I wasn't following you. I came to find my brother. Gunanjao's gaze remained fixed on Pei Yin, his expression seemingly guarded, his tone carried reproach, yet his response was directed at me. I told you, I'm not your brother, stop calling me that. I walked past him and stopped in front of Pei Yin. The man who left the house neatly dressed now appeared normal at first glance, yet his shoes were visibly wet, with mud stains on his black trousers. That night when I fell into the river and was rescued by passers-by, I was covered in similar mud. Perhaps Pei Yin had been to the riverside, but in the end, he still came back. He came to the mall and bought the fish he promised me. I reached out and took the bag from his hand. Looking back at him, she said, "Let's go home, brother." A sudden tremor passed through Pei Yin's calm yet shadowed eyes. Before he could respond, Gu Nanzhao had already charged forward in uncontrollable rage. "What did you call him, Gu Nanzhao? Have you lost your mind?" I looked at him with a puzzled expression and said, "This is my brother. What else should I call him? Didn't you already know?" Gu Nanzhao's face turned ashen, momentarily speechless, unable to utter a word for quite some time. As I walked away arm in arm with Pei Yin, he finally caught up and stopped me in furious anger. "You haven't come home all afternoon, Gu Nanzhao. You're not really going home with this man, are you? You dare run off with a stranger? Have you lost your mind?" My throat felt tight, and for a moment I couldn't speak. He was so agitated, as if the one who fantasized about me losing my memory in the afternoon and couldn't wait to cut ties with me wasn't him. Gu Nanzhao saw that I wasn't speaking and began to lose control of his emotions. He reached out and grabbed Pei Yin by the collar. "This is kidnapping. I can call the police right now." Pei Yin still didn't move. He calmly met Gu Nanzhao's gaze and, after a moment, only replied, "She's an adult." Gu Nanzhao grew even more furious, his palm tightening. I was terrified that Pei Yin would be pushed down by him. The man's face was deathly pale, as if even a gust of wind could make him collapse the next moment. I angrily shoved Gu Nanzhao. "Let go." More and more people were looking over curiously. Gu Nanzhao had always been a respectable man. After a long stalemate, he finally released his grip with resentment. He stared at Pei Yin and let out a cold laugh. "She said you're her brother. Fine, even if I just ask once. Do you even know her name, Gu Nanzhao?" I immediately responded, for Gu Nanzhao was nearly hopping mad. I was asking him, "Who told you to answer, Gu Nanzhao? Just keep pretending. You know perfectly well he doesn't even know your name." I said calmly, "You should get your head examined." Pei Yin and I left. Behind us came Gu Nanzhao's angry, mocking laugh. "Did you think pretending to lose your memory could really erase the fact that you killed our parents, letting you go on living selfishly without a care?" I instinctively quickened my pace. Later, I didn't dare listen to another word behind me. When hurrying out of the mall, it was almost like fleeing in panic. I reached the roadside and took a taxi home with Pei Yin. "Oh, that's not my home, that's Pei Yin's place." Sitting in the back seat of the car, my mind was filled with words I've heard countless times over the years. "Gu Nanzhao, that's the fact that you caused our parents' death. Gu Nanzhao, why are you still alive? Gu Nanzhao, it's you who deserves to die." A tissue was silently handed to me from beside. Only then did I realize I had shed tears. I took the tissue and, through blurred vision, turned to look at the person beside me. I said, "I regret it too." After a long pause, he responded softly, I wanted to laugh, but didn't. He doesn't even understand. Why is he saying He is merely a stranger who has never met me before." Yet tears refused to obey. Hearing that it felt as if Gu Nanzhao was truly responding to me. After 7 years, he was finally willing to properly listen to a single word I said. I wiped my eyes haphazardly, tears soaking through the thin tissue. The person beside me stayed silent, handing over another one. He didn't ask why I was crying, didn't ask if I'd remembered something, didn't ask whether I truly remembered or not. He didn't ask anything, just remained silent, until I cried myself to exhaustion, leaned back against the seat, and fell into a deep sleep. In the dream, Mom gently touched my head and said, "Xiao Qiao, don't cry. Mom will help you beat up your brother, okay?" I was a premature baby, weighing less than 2 kilograms at birth. Before I was even a month old, I nearly died in the incubator. My parents were heartbroken for me. From the moment I was born, they poured almost all their love and care into me alone. They would start preparing the celebration nearly half a month in advance before each of my birthdays. No matter how busy with work or how far away abroad, they never missed a single parent-teacher meeting, Children's Day, or anniversary of mine. They hired professional nannies to take me to and from school and take care of my daily meals. would indulge me in taking leave to go to the amusement park, then hire the gentlest tutor to help me catch up on missed lessons. For many years of my childhood, I took pride in this, until the year I turned 7, when I bought a gift after school for my brother Gunanjao's birthday and came home, only to find Gunanjao alone in his bedroom, eating a palm-sized cake. My parents went on a business trip out of town, and the nanny prepared dinner before leaving. I suddenly realized that for many years, I seemed to be the only one in this household who consistently remembered Gunanjao's birthday, apart from himself. It appears it was only me. That night, I felt indignant on Gunanjao's behalf and wiped away angry tears. He frantically dropped the cake and hugged me, coaxing me by saying, "It's okay, big brother, just like mom and dad. Big brother only cares that little sister is healthy, that's all that matters." He didn't just say it, he meant it. Ever since I can remember, my elders have often joked with me about it. When I was born and put in an incubator, nearly dying, Gunanjao cried harder than anyone. That's why my parents treasure me most, their miracle survivor. Gunanjao feels the same way, yet he was also a child. With a birthday of his own, he wasn't born to be overlooked, born to always prioritize his younger sister. His parents still forgot his birthday countless times. Even on Gunanjao's 18th birthday, they remained indifferent as if nothing was amiss. After driving Gunanjao off to cram school early in the morning, I had to rush off for a business trip out of town. Coincidentally, I was on vacation at home. Mom didn't trust me alone, so she packed my luggage and insisted I come along. Furious, I shouted angrily, "I won't go. I hate you all, and I never want to go anywhere with you again." Mom's eyes turned red with sorrow. Dad had no choice but to ask the nanny to take good care of me before leaving with Mom. I stayed alone in the bedroom, preparing for Gunanjao's coming-of-age ceremony. Using my New Year's money, I booked the banquet venue in advance. He created a group chat again, inviting me along with his friends and classmates. I think parents and elders don't care about my brother, but I do. In the evening, I sent a message in the group chat. Just as I was about to call Gunanjao to ask him to go to the hotel for a surprise, inside the house, a faint tremor suddenly began, then the chandelier on the ceiling abruptly fell, striking my head. My vision blurred into a hazy crimson, and I can scarcely recall what happened next. I collapsed to the ground, panicked and desperate to escape, yet too weak to rise. Then came my parents as if descending from the heavens. They might have entered through the bedroom door, or perhaps the window. Beneath the collapsing roof, they held me tight. The nanny fled alone in the critical moment. My brother, in the same cram school that also experienced the earthquake, was trapped under the rubble. In the endless darkness around me, amidst the growing drowsiness, listening to my parents' anxious, exhausted, and persistent voices, "Be good, Xiao Qiao, don't fall asleep." That year, on your brother's 3rd birthday, he pestered our parents to go out and play. Mom accidentally took a fall. And after a week of bed rest to prevent miscarriage, you were still born prematurely. All these years, it's not that Mom and Dad forgot your brother's birthday, it's his guilt. He feels that celebrating his birthday is even more painful than not celebrating it at all. Be good, Xiao Qiao, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. I don't remember what time I was rescued. My parents' voices still echoed in my ears, but only their bodies were recovered. I couldn't believe it and asked the rescuers, but I just heard their voices. The rescuers told me it was a recording. 5, liar. They left first, recorded the sound with a phone, telling me not to sleep, because I said I hated them. They were so heartbroken they didn't eat or drink all day, said they'd go out of town, but never did, come back to save me when the earthquake strikes again. Hungry, thirsty, and exhausted, they didn't survive the night. My life suddenly became a complete mess. No one ever mentioned that 18th birthday surprise I prepared for Gunanjao again. Gunanjao was rescued from the ruins of the cram school. My always gentlest brother confronted me with grief and anger for the first time. Weren't Mom and Dad taking you on a business trip? Why did you stay home? Why are you always so disobedient? Is it because you're throwing a tantrum to go to the amusement park again? I stared at his ferocious, nearly torn apart face. Suddenly I felt some truths didn't need to be spoken anymore. When it comes to my parents' death, my suffering and guilt alone are enough. Gunanjao doesn't need to know it's related to him. In the end, his eyes turned bloodshot with rage. For the first time, he cursed at me. "Gunanjao, you're utterly despicable." Even later, when a mutual friend, despite my protests, revealed that I had been preparing a birthday celebration for him that day, but Gunanjao didn't believe it. He sneered mockingly at me. "Gunanjao, Is the truth that your willfulness caused your parents' death really so hard for you to admit? After that, he never again spoke a single kind word to me. Once again, I was trapped in a nightmare, shivering all over, yet drenched in cold sweat, until someone beside me called softly, "Wake up. Wake up." The person gently nudged my arm. The gentle voice sounded just like my parents coaxing in the dream, "Don't fall asleep." I jolted awake from the dream, gasping heavily with huffing breaths. It took a while for my vision to clear. The taxi had already stopped outside the villa area. Pei Yan turned his head, looking at me with some concern. He grabbed a tissue. After a moment's hesitation, he wiped the sweat from my forehead, then asked me, "You look pale, are you carsick?" I tilted my head to look at him, remaining silent for a while, perhaps because I'd just woken up. His face appeared alternately clear and blurry to me, vaguely. It seemed as if Gu Nanzhao came into view again. Pei Yan let out a soft sigh, then took out the wallet to pay the fare, pushed open the car door, and helped me out. "It's not far now, let's walk back." "Okay." I still remained silent and followed him out of the car. The night grew deeper, and a heavy rain had already ceased. Standing by the unfamiliar roadside, I shrank my neck as the wind blew against my face. Suddenly, there was a moment of daze, unsure of what year or month it was now. "I don't know why I came here." Pei Yan also seemed at a loss for words. He stood with me for a while, then looked at the two umbrellas still in my hands before asking, "Did you go out of your way to bring me an umbrella?" I stared at him for a long time. After a long while, I finally nodded. "Right, you didn't drive. And you didn't bring your phone either." I couldn't tell if it was the streetlight playing tricks or my blurred vision creating an illusion. I sighed. I noticed Pei Yan's expression falter slightly, and for a fleeting moment, his eyes seemed to redden. Actually, I wasn't just going to bring him an umbrella. I thought he might have died out there, but saying such things out loud doesn't sound good after all. I followed Pei Yan as we walked into the villa area. I hadn't gone far before feeling too exhausted to continue. That familiar palpitation, mixed with a headache, wave after wave came crashing over me. My therapist told me it's completely normal for depression patients to experience such situations. When you suddenly feel uncomfortable, find a comfortable place to rest for a while. Find one or two close friends or relatives to accompany you and listen to your thoughts. But I lost the friends or relatives who were willing to listen to me long ago. My brother Gu Nanzhao hates me. He took over the family business 7 years ago, and all my former friends and relatives have more or less relied on his help. So gradually, like Gu Nanzhao, they all stopped treating me well. I lost the desire to confide in others a long time ago. Enduring the headache, I stopped walking and stood still. Pei Yan walked a short distance ahead, probably noticing I hadn't followed. He turned back to look at me in the night. Again like that, watching me silently from a distance. Suddenly I understood why he always liked doing this. Perhaps from further away, it's easier to mistake someone for another person from your memories. Like now, as I look at him in the dim light, it's as if I'm seeing Gu Nanzhao, and as he looks at me, he's probably imagining what the man on the phone described, his deceased sister, Pei Yan. A car drives out from the villa area. The somewhat glaring headlights sweep across my face and then pass by. It was clearly my eyes that were stung, yet Pei Yan squinted his. In the depths of the night, his complexion seemed to grow even paler. 6. He remained standing there, not coming any closer. His voice lifted slightly as he asked, "Can't you walk anymore? Do you need me to carry you?" The streetlight was fragmented by tree shadows as I watched him in the interplay of light and shade, nodding, "All right." Pei Yan walked towards me and took off his overcoat. Gazing at the top of my head, he draped the coat over my shoulders. He took the things from my hands, turned his back, and crouched down in front of me. The moment I agreed, I already felt a twinge of regret. Seeing him like this, I worried whether he could still carry me on his back, so when I leaned onto his back, I was extra cautious, terrified he might collapse. The man seemed to be in a slightly better mood for once. Always appearing sickly and lethargic, he now let out a soft chuckle. "It's not that serious." He carried me on his back as he stood up, then said gently, "Let's go home." My eyes suddenly burned with unshed tears. Tears fell abruptly, landing on his shoulder. His steps seemed to hesitate slightly, as if he might have noticed. I bit my lip hard, making no sound. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. For many years in the past, countless times, Gu Nanzhao would also wait for me in the night. From afar, he would stand there calling anxiously, "Little sister, over here," as if afraid I wouldn't notice him and might run off and get lost. When I acted spoiled and stubborn, saying I couldn't walk anymore, he would also carry me on his back like this and say, "Let's go home." He doesn't want me anymore, he said. "I'm not your brother," he said. "Make sure you understand this clearly, and don't bother me again." I lost my parents overnight, and the love of my elder brother. And because of that night, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. In my memories and dreams, that night's events repeat endlessly, the exact same scenario, with intensely real sensations: the shaking floor, the crashing chandelier, my parents holding me tight, repeating those words over and over: "Xiao Qiao, don't fall asleep, don't sleep, don't sleep, that's a recording, Miss Gu, that's a recording." Gu Nanjiao furiously accused and questioned, then severe depression. The psychologist told me, "Let's talk to your brother." But at that time, our family suddenly encountered a major change. Just after reaching adulthood, Gu Nanjiao had to join the company, and his personality drastically changed due to immense pressure. He shouldn't have to endure greater sorrow and suffering because of my mental illness. I started thinking about those things again, painfully, uncontrollably. My body seemed to tremble. And I heard faint sobs. It might have been the wind. Or perhaps it was me crying. Pei Yan's voice sounded by my ear. "Stars." I tilted my head and looked at the sky, seeing only the pitch-black darkness of night. I replied with a trembling voice, "There are no stars." Pei Yan fell silent, until they finally reached outside the villa gate. He spoke again, "We're home, Xingxing." "Oh, he's calling someone." The young and promising CEO Pei, whose career is flourishing, once had a younger sister named Pei Xing, passing through the wrought iron gate. Pei Yan set me down. He turned to look at me, his brows relaxing as if he wanted to say something. Upon seeing my face clearly, his expression froze momentarily. One must always return to reality. He looked at me for a moment, quickly regained his composure, and his expression returned to normal. As we entered together, he gently asked me, "Would you like the fish braised or boiled?" I replied, "Boiled, please, something lighter." Given his health condition, he probably shouldn't eat anything too heavy or spicy, right? Wash vegetables, cook, and then eat. We ate the meal in unusual silence. Halfway through the meal, Pei Yan suddenly looked at me and said, "Actually, you and I." It seemed he couldn't bear to deceive me any longer. Carefully considering his words, I pretended not to hear it. After serving a bowl of fish soup, he spoke again, "It seems a bit too spicy. Should we use less chili next time?" There was a struggle in Pei Yan's eyes. After a long pause, he finally responded, "All right." He pushed the water glass toward me. "Then have some water, Nan Qiao." After finishing the meal, he tidied up the bedroom for me before returning to his own room to rest. Unable to sleep at night, I got up in the middle of the night and left the bedroom, wanting to go downstairs for a glass of water. Just as I stepped out, I faintly heard violent coughing coming from the adjacent bedroom. It seems there were also sounds of vomiting mixed in, continuously, incessantly. The sounds were terrifying to hear. I went over and knocked, but there was no response, only violent coughing and retching. I tried to open the door, and it wasn't locked. The door opened, and by the moonlight, I saw the man sitting on the sofa. A strong smell of smoke and alcohol hit me as his back was hunched in the dim light. Bending over the trash can at his feet, one hand gripping the sofa, his arm was trembling violently. I didn't turn on the light and walked over. The pale moonlight faintly illuminated the bloodstains on the carpet by his feet. In the late stages of heart failure, one may cough up blood. Smoking and drinking like this is practically suicidal. Those few white medicine bottles containing sleep aids were thrown in front of him, mixed with cigarettes and alcohol. One medicine bottle was opened, and all the pills spilled onto the coffee table. Perhaps he opened the bottle intending to take the medicine but then lost his grip. Hearing footsteps, he looked up at me. In a flustered hurry, he pulled open the drawer and haphazardly stuffed the medicine bottles and pills inside. 7. He also wanted to hide the cigarettes and alcohol, but probably realized I had already seen them. With blood still smeared at the corner of his mouth, he looked at me with dazed eyes, his expression full of agony. "I'm sorry, Big Brother shouldn't have acted this way." I sat silently beside him and asked, "Do you really want to die?" For a moment, I couldn't tell if I was asking him, or asking that question to myself, who had wanted to end my life countless times. "Do you really want to die that much? Is it really impossible to try living on?" Pei Yan looked at me blankly. After a long pause, he finally replied self-deceptively, "It's just because I have a terminal illness." Under the moonlight, I gazed at his face. What if heart failure could be treated by finding a compatible heart for transplant? Pei Yan's face trembled, but he didn't respond to me. After a long silence, I continued, hey, should we try to keep living in this world, we who are no longer noticed by anyone, rather than dying silently? How about trying to live on, at least every Qingming festival? We can personally offer a stick of incense to the family members we've let down, at the very least. The family members who left because of us clearly wished for us to live well. Pei Yan's face trembled more and more violently. Raising his hands, he covered his face with both palms. His voice was filled with agony. I've long lost the face to keep living. That year, she took her own life while gravely ill to spare me from paying exorbitant medical fees. So all these years, I've been working desperately to earn money, but it's no use now, it's no use anymore. In the night, his voice gradually turned into sobs. I whispered softly, so, only death would truly make me unworthy of them, I told him, and I told myself. The clock struck midnight, and the faint light of dawn began to appear outside the window. After a long while, Pei Yan finally released his grip, looking at me with a sorrowful expression as he said, so you really, he didn't continue, but I understood what he meant. He knew it. I was indeed pretending, feigning that I had mistaken him for my brother. The answer is self-evident. I didn't answer, just stared into his eyes. How about we try to find a compatible heart for you? Pei Yan's expression was pained and confused. Why are you helping me? I responded, because if you can, keep holding on to life, then I, too, want to try living on, just as my parents risked their lives and hoped for. We gazed at each other in prolonged silence through the quiet night. As the sky gradually brightened, Pei Yan finally nodded. He said, all right. But, I'm afraid I can only disappoint you. I laughed and said, don't be so lacking in confidence, miracles might happen. I lived like a walking corpse for 7 years, but now I've suddenly started finding things to do. Pei Yan's health was deteriorating day by day. It became difficult for him to go to the company again, but the matter of selling the company was also temporarily put on hold. His physical condition makes it difficult for him to travel around, contacting hospitals and medical institutions to find a compatible heart. Fortunately, apart from occasional mental health episodes, I don't have any other serious illnesses or injuries. I took on the important task of finding a heart for him. I worked almost every day from dawn to dusk, contacting renowned hospitals both domestically and abroad. To gain the hospital's attention, I donated some more money to them. Pei Yan and I weren't living lavishly, but fortunately, we were both relatively well off. Before my parents passed away, they left me a will with 100 million in savings and 30% of the company's shares. On minor New Year's Day, I was in the kitchen preparing the New Year's Eve dinner with Pei Yan, suddenly received a phone call from Norway. When I answered the phone, Pei Yan was washing vegetables by the sink. His health was deteriorating, and he could barely muster the strength to cook anymore, but he had already dismissed the previous housekeeper. He felt bad about leaving me to cook alone, so he insisted on helping out. Listening to the voice on the other end of the phone, I met Pei Yan's gaze as he turned from the sink. Perhaps we spent a considerable amount of money, or perhaps luck suddenly began to favor us. I clearly heard the intense pounding of my own heartbeat. The only thing that could make one feel anticipation and excitement wasn't just death. There was also new life, a new life for oneself, where one fought for others. I dropped my phone, overwhelmed with joy, and threw myself at him in an emotional outburst, hugging him tightly. Found it, Pei Yan, I found it. The man staggered slightly. He reached out, braced against the refrigerator behind him, then embraced me in return. He chuckled, his voice trembling with excitement just like mine. Thank you, Nan Xiao. With reddened eyes, I looked up at him earnestly and said, and thank you too. If it weren't for him, that day after I narrowly escaped death by falling into the river, only to be abandoned by Gu Nanzhao upon hearing him say he's not my brother, I probably would have sought death once again. For the past 7 years, there's been a voice in my heart. It has whispered darkly to me countless times. Gu Nanzhao, die, just die. If you die, you won't dream anymore. If you die, you won't keep reliving that day. If you die, the pain will end. 8. And now, an additional voice occasionally emerges in my mind, carrying the tenderness and affection my parents once had. It says to me, Nan Xiao, try to save yourself, try to live on, just like how you saved Pei Yan. With a heart full of excitement, I said, if the surgery goes well, let's live well from now on. Okay, after a long pause. Pei Yan nodded. Yes, together, we'll both live well, for ourselves, and for our deceased family members. I began preparing for the arrangements to go abroad with Pei Yan for the heart transplant surgery. We agreed that if the surgery went smoothly, we'd consider settling there for some years. Gu Nanzhao no longer acknowledges me as his sister. There's probably nothing left tying me to this country anymore. I want to try living in a different place. Hoping to no longer be haunted by nightmares every night, no longer endlessly contemplating suicide. After Pei Yan's surgery, he would also need several years of proper rest and recuperation. Norway's tranquil environment makes it ideal for convalescence. Once the decision was made, Pei Yan immediately contacted a real estate agency in Norway and purchased a house. However, the risks of heart transplantation remain enormous, with limited success rates. It would be best to find the most experienced and professional cardiac surgeon to perform the operation. Internationally renowned in this field is a Chinese-American professor surnamed Wei. I managed to inquire and finally learned that Professor Wei would be returning to the country by the end of the year. Went to a remote mountain village in Jiangqing to spend the new year with my elderly mother who refused to leave her hometown. Only staying for a few days, I couldn't reach him. So after much deliberation, I decided to try making the trip in person. When asking for a favor, speaking face-to-face shows more sincerity. Jiangqing had been experiencing heavy snowfall for several consecutive days. Pei Yan didn't feel comfortable letting me go alone, but couldn't stop me either. In the end, we both compromised. I booked 2 plane tickets, and he agreed to accompany me. The plane landed in Jiangqing. Then we transferred to a bus heading to the township. After arriving in the small town, the road to Professor Wei's village was closed due to heavy snow and ice. No vehicles could take us into the village. We could only find a small inn in the town and settled in temporarily. The inn had poor soundproofing. Late at night as I lay in bed, I heard Pei Yan's violent, painful coughing and retching again. He must have coughed up blood again. The hospital in Norway contacted me once more, advising us to go there as soon as possible to prepare for the transplant surgery. The snow outside the window continues to fall heavily. At the first light of dawn, I gritted my teeth and got up to leave. The route from the town to the village isn't complicated. I asked the innkeeper to draw me a map, then bundled up in thick cotton-padded clothes. Leaving the inn, I walked along the deserted icy road toward the village. It was nearly noon by the time I finally reached my destination. My entire body numb from the cold, a middle-aged man was sweeping snow in the yard, struggling forward. I looked at his face, then checked the photo on my phone. After confirming that Professor Wei was indeed the person before me, I instantly let out a long sigh of relief. My whole body trembled uncontrollably, my legs gave way, and I collapsed weakly, kneeling directly in the snow. Professor Wei was utterly startled by me and immediately dropped his broom to come help me up. He exclaimed in shock and concern, "Whose child is this, frozen to such a state?" Before I could speak, several more people emerged from the room. I recognized 2 familiar faces and froze momentarily. It was Gu Nanzhao and Linanen, the daughter of his business partner. As Linanen walked out, she called out to Professor Wei, "Uncle, who is it?" Gu Nanzhao emerged from behind her with a reproachful expression. "Put your clothes on properly, don't catch a cold." Strangely enough, ever since Gu Nanzhao said he wasn't my brother, I never went to see him again, yet somehow, I always inexplicably run into him. Gu Nanzhao looked at me collapsed on the ground, his eyes filled with fury. He strode through the snow with a livid expression. "Gu Nanzhao, have you lost your mind? I told you I'm not your brother. How dare you secretly follow me through this blizzard and frozen wilderness?" Can't blame him for misunderstanding. Coming to such a remote mountain hollow, if I said it was coincidence, it would indeed be hard to believe. Professor Wei said urgently, "Don't talk about that now, Nanzhao. Quickly take off your jacket and wrap it around this young girl." Gu Nanzhao scowled as he reluctantly took off his coat and haphazardly draped it over me. His voice was laced with anger. "Come inside with me." As he spoke, he grabbed my arm firmly and pulled me toward the interior. I shivered for a long time before finally mustering the strength to get up. Then I reached out, laboriously pushed his hand away, and said, "I'm not here for you, Professor Wei. I came specifically to see you." As I spoke, I carefully took out the document folder I had tucked inside my clothes. Inside were Pei Yan's medical records. I explained my purpose, then pleaded with reddened eyes, "Please help us. The heart transplant surgery is simply too risky. We only have this one chance at life." Gu Nanzhao looked at me in disbelief. 9. After a long while, he opened his mouth several times but couldn't utter a word. He probably couldn't comprehend how I could go to such lengths for a complete stranger. After a while, even a trace of fear seemed to surface in his expression. He stared fixedly at my face. Gu Nanzhao, you wouldn't really. Professor Wei's phone rang. He tossed out a "let's talk inside first" before answering the call and walking in. I was terrified that once he went inside, I wouldn't be able to see him again. In a flustered panic, I tried to push Gu Nanzhao away so I could chase after him. Gu Nanzhao forcefully grabbed me, his expression furious. Have you truly lost your mind? That's just a stranger, and the roads within 10 kilometers around this village are all closed. You're risking half your life just to find a doctor for that man. I desperately pushed his hand away. Watching Professor Wei walk in and disappear from sight, Lin An followed suit and entered as well. My eyes reddened with a mix of anger and anxiety, and in the heat of the moment, I blurted out, "That's not a stranger, Mr. Gu, you're the stranger to me." Gu Nanzhao's eyes turned bloodshot, finally unable to endure any longer. "That person isn't your brother at all. Our names differ by just one character, Gu Nanzhao. Don't you understand?" The force in his palm was too strong. No matter what I do, I can't break free. Finally giving up the futile struggle, I looked at him with some amusement. Understand what? I should have known. Didn't you already tell me clearly, word by word? Gu Nanzhao's expression froze, his thin lips trembling. It's not like that, it's not. I wanted to say something more. In the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw that familiar figure behind him. That usually pale face now seemed to have lost its last trace of color. It was Pei Yan. He had actually come looking for me. The man was covered in snow from his long journey, his face etched with anxiety and exhaustion. When he saw me, his pale face relaxed with relief. Noticing Gu Nanzhao again, he seemed momentarily dazed before slowly lowering his gaze. Gentle, desolate, uneasy. In my daze, I suddenly seemed to see Gu Nanzhao in his teens, hiding alone in his bedroom, quietly eating cake by himself. It's been too many years since I last saw that gentle side of Gu Nanzhao. Pei Yan's lowered gaze fell upon the snow-covered ground. He stood there for a while, lost in thought. He didn't call out to me, nor did he take another step. Gu Nanzhao said with a trembling voice, "Enough, this game ends here. You'll stay with me here first. When the snow melts, I'll take you back." Understood. Pei Yan's hand hanging at his side, blue from the cold, suddenly trembled. He finally reacted. With stiff and slow movements, he turned around and laboriously walked back the way he came. It felt like needles piercing my heart. The pain was excruciating. Overwhelmed with anxiety, I cried out in panic, "Brother, I'm not Pei Yan's sister." But I knew very well that this form of address would soften his heart the most. With his current physical condition, it was already a struggle for him to make it this far. If he had to go back the same way, something bad would definitely happen. Pei Yan abruptly halted his steps, but his stiffened back remained turned away. Gu Nanzhao was thunderstruck, his eyes wide with fury as he glared at me. "Gu Nanzhao, what did you call him? Look clearly, look carefully. I'm your real brother." That frozen silhouette soon struggled to lift its feet again, trudging back along the path it came. I fought desperately to push Gu Nanzhao away. "Let go, release me." Gu Nanzhao's eyes turned red, suddenly letting out a cold, reckless laugh. "Do you think a stranger would take you back for no reason? I've checked. He lost a sister years ago. She died when she was just a teenager." The figure in the distance abruptly stopped again. In the sudden gust of cold wind, the man stumbled awkwardly and fell heavily to the ground. In an instant, there was no more sound. My eyes turned red with rage as I cried out in terror, get away from me, let me go." I was already so close to saving him. I clearly heard him say he was willing to live on, and we found a compatible heart. Tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. Unable to break free from that iron-like grip, my body slid down as I knelt on the ground in despair. "Please, let me go. I need to save him." Gu Nanzhao clutched my hand desperately, yet it was as if he had seen something too terrifying. His face turned pale as he took a step back. He murmured in disbelief, "How could this be? How is this possible? Have you truly forgotten?" The man's face gradually paled before he suddenly crouched down, cupped my face, and drew close to me. "Brother is here. Xiao Qiao, what are you doing? Look at me, look carefully. I am your brother." In the corner of my vision, Pei Yan lay silently collapsed on the ground. I shook my head in fear. "You're not." Huge fear gradually surfaced in Gu Nanzhao's eyes. Xiao Qiao, I'm your brother. Have you really forgotten me?" I couldn't push him away. Gradually losing the strength to struggle, tears streamed down, yet she suddenly burst into laughter. What kind of brother is this, Mr. Gu? You're my brother's friend. What's wrong? Have you forgotten? You also fell into the river. Are you having memory problems? Gu Nanzhao clutched my face desperately, forcing me to look at him. His hands were trembling more and more violently, his eyes were bloodshot, filled with confusion. Impossible, I won't believe it. Gradually, I began to lose the sound of his voice. In my vision, only that person lying in the snowstorm remained. Just days ago, he was gently telling me, let's both live well together, until Professor Wei, having finished the phone call, finally stepped out. His words, "Why haven't you come in yet?" barely left his lips. 10. Seeing the scene in the snow, he immediately shouted angrily, "What's going on here? Hurry up and save them. How can you joke about human lives?" All I could hear was a violent ringing in my ears, my vision blurred. Professor Wei quickly checked Pei Yan's condition, then with great effort helped him up and took him inside. As he passed by me and Gu Nanzhao was still gripping me tightly, unwilling to let go, angrily shouting, "First figure out who your real brother is, then we'll talk about saving him." Professor Wei couldn't free his hands, his face darkened with anger, and in frustration he simply kicked Gu Nanzhao hard. Nonsense, human lives are at stake. If you want to make trouble, at least pick the right time. Gu Nanzhao wasn't prepared for someone to strike, losing his balance and staggering sideways, momentarily releasing his grip on me. I immediately scrambled to my feet in panic, stumbling after Professor Wei as he rushed inside. I saw Pei Yan's face had already turned ashen, even his lips taking on a deathly bluish-gray hue. My hands trembled as I reached out, trying to feel his breath. Professor Wei spoke in a low voice, still alive. The overwhelming wave of terror and guilt that threatened to drown me finally subsided, at least temporarily. Pei Yan's condition was critical. Fortunately, Professor Wei had brought some medicine and medical equipment with him due to his elderly mother's poor health. He provided emergency treatment for Pei Yan and then administered an 4 drip. Pei Yan still hadn't woken up, but his breathing had stabilized. At night, I slept on a makeshift bed by his bedside, thinking this way makes it convenient to check on his condition and breathing at any time. Heart failure patients must absolutely avoid catching cold. After all the commotion during the day, I'm worried his condition might worsen late at night. With a heart transplant on the horizon, it's best to remain cautious until the dawn truly arrives. Professor Wei said worriedly, "Will you be comfortable sleeping like this? If not, I can come watch over him tonight." I immediately replied, "It's fine, I'm used to it. It makes no difference how I sleep." Professor Wei silently looked at me for a while, then suddenly spoke again, "I remember you used to be quite delicate." I froze for a moment, feeling inexplicably embarrassed. "You recognized me?" Professor Wei sighed lightly. "You've lost so much weight. I remember you used to have such a plump, fair face, and were particularly willful and mischievous. Back then, your parents and brother spoiled you so much." Really? The words trailed off halfway, left ultimately unsaid. After a long pause, he finally asked again, "Did you have a falling out with your brother?" I saw no reason to hide it and answered truthfully, "He refuses to acknowledge me now. Professor Wei and I go way back when my parents were still alive. He had some friendship with my father, otherwise, I wouldn't have trekked nearly 10 kilometers through snow and ice to find him." No one is obligated to give up their rare rest time or time spent with their elderly mother, to return to work during New Year's Eve and Spring Festival to perform surgeries. I just thought, perhaps, if he doesn't agree, I could swallow my pride and remind him of the old ties between our families. Maybe he would consider some past affection. But forcing someone's hand is something I can't quite bring myself to do. Professor Wei didn't elaborate further on the private matters between me and Gu Nanzhao, nor did he ask about my relationship with Pei Yan. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke again. "Heart transplant surgery has the lowest success rate among all organ transplants. As a doctor, I can only do my best. You need to be mentally prepared for all outcomes." I was overjoyed for a moment. I wanted to express my gratitude urgently, but was too overwhelmed to speak for a long while. Professor Wei said gently, "Get some rest early. You don't look well. You should find time to take care of your health. A compatible heart has been found, and the best doctor is ready." Lying in bed late at night, I gaze at the moonlight outside the window. Suddenly I feel that the light, which always seemed dull and gray before, appears exceptionally bright tonight, like the rising sun at dawn. It's been many years since I last felt such joy. Early the next morning, Pei Yan finally woke up. I told him about Professor Wei's agreement, and he was as delighted as I was. While I was talking to him, someone knocked on the bedroom door, and then it was pushed open. Gu Nanzhao stood outside with a stern face, his tone somewhat awkward. Go down and eat. I made breakfast. I just had an argument with him yesterday, and being around him was really quite awkward. But this was a remote mountain village, with all the surrounding roads blocked off. Regarding Pei Yan's condition, I can't take him away for the time being, so I'll have to shamelessly stay here for food and lodging first. I looked at Pei Yan and said, can you get out of bed? Let me help you. At the door, Gu Nanzhao spoke again. Professor Wei said he should stay in bed and rest quietly. I'd asked the housekeeper to bring the meal upstairs. Let him eat in his room. As he spoke, the nanny entered through the door carrying a meal tray and helped set up a small dining table on the bed. Pei Yan turned to me gently and said, I can manage on my own, you go ahead. Gu Nanzhao sneered at the doorway. What's the problem? He's not missing any limbs. Does he need to be fed? He always speaks so harshly. I went downstairs, and he brought out breakfast. Neither Lin and nor Professor Wei were around. They'd probably already eaten when my parents were still alive. Gu Nanzhao and I would walk home from school together, and he often cooked for me. Back then, I was particularly picky, and he knew my tastes best. After my parents passed away, I never got to eat his cooking again. 11. The company always had endless work, and Gu Nanzhao resented me, no longer wanting to have meals with me. I sat down at the dining table, silently eating the fried eggs and toast in front of me, with a cup of warm soy milk by my hand. The eggs were fried golden on both sides. In the corner of my eye, I saw a soft-boiled egg placed before Gu Nanzhao. I'm allergic to milk and don't like undercooked eggs either. We've been arguing a lot these years, but it seems he's always remembered many things. The vast dining room was enveloped in deathly silence. I suddenly realized that my brother, who used to share everything with me, now sits beside me, only making me feel extremely awkward and embarrassed. Sitting so close while eating, I truly don't know what to say to him. I could only force conversation. The eggs seem a bit burnt. Gu Nanzhao responded with a dissatisfied "Oh, didn't you say you liked it more well done?" He stood up and took away the plate in front of me. The roads are frozen shut in this bitter cold. We're lucky to have anything to eat at all. Yet you're still being picky. He returned to the kitchen, followed by the sound of the stove being relit. Within minutes, a fresh plate of fried eggs was brought out again, without even looking at me. He tossed the plate back in front of me. Last time, if you're still picky, make it yourself. I suddenly felt a lump in my throat, subconsciously lowered my head and continued eating. Gu Nanzhao's voice was displeased. That's enough acting. The weather cleared up today. The road should be unblocked by afternoon. After finishing the meal, get ready to come back with me. It felt like a lump of cotton was stuck in my throat. For a moment, the words of agreement almost spilled from my lips. In this world, we truly only have each other left as our sole family. Before I could speak, he glanced upstairs again, his voice laced with loathing. That man isn't short of money. Don't interfere with him anymore. Let him find someone to pick him up himself. He can figure out his own treatment. Stop meddling with these ill-intentioned. So, he didn't just call me here for breakfast. The premise of taking me back is making me abandon Pei Yan. The food I was chewing suddenly became difficult to swallow. I set down my chopsticks neither lightly nor heavily, raised my eyes, and looked at the person beside me. How is he ill-intentioned? Gu Nanzhao's rarely softened expression quickly darkened again. Do you still want to defend him? Traveling thousands of miles here for a stranger, walking for hours in the freezing snow to seek medical help for him. As he spoke, anger rose within him again. Look at yourself. What have you become? Did you care this much even when our parents passed away? The knife that had been stabbing my heart for 7 years suddenly felt like someone grabbed its handle again, twisting the blade inside my chest. I abruptly stood up, letting out a cold, bitter laugh. Emotions finally burst through the dam. I no longer wished to pretend with him. What do I look like now? Gu Nanzhao, you were the one who told me he's my brother, who told me to stop bothering you and to go with him. Still not satisfied. So what do you expect? What should I be like, and what should he be like? Didn't everything go as he wished? Gu Nanzhao's thin lips trembled. After a fleeting trace of guilt flashed in his eyes, it quickly turned into raging anger. You were indeed pretending. I stopped avoiding and met his gaze directly. Yes, I was pretending. But you were the one who told me to get lost first. For 7 years you were unhappy with me clinging to the Gu family, and now you're unhappy that I've left. 7 years ago I had a fight with my parents and stayed at home. I couldn't predict there would be an earthquake later. They passed away because of me, and I'm more heartbroken than anyone. So, what? What else do you want from me? For 7 years, I dreamt of that day every single night. That recording was the thing I feared most, yet I still played it on loop countless times during countless sleepless nights, like some form of self-torture. The moment I close my eyes, all I see is my parents covered in blood. I'm afraid of the dark, afraid of enclosed spaces. I sleep with the lights on, yet suffer from endless sleepless nights, nervous exhaustion, depressive mood. If death could atone for sins, I'd dream of nothing but dying, but my life was saved by them risking their own. I tried countless times, yet retreated at the last moment every time. Living feels like betraying them, but dying would betray them even more. I live a life worse than death, yet cannot die. Countless times, I deliberately wandered in pitch-black alleyways, like a madman. I even fantasized that some desperate criminal would suddenly appear and stab me to death. I looked at Gu Nanzhao, my eyes gradually turning completely red. Why don't you tell me? What exactly do you want from me? Or better yet, why don't you just kill me? Gu Nanzhao looked at me in disbelief, as if he was seeing a stranger. A strange emotion flashed in his eyes, somewhat resembling the expression my once doting elder brother used to show. It was the same expression he'd wear whenever I occasionally felt wronged in the past, tender yet helpless, but the current Gu Nanzhao would no longer feel any heartache for me. The emotion I saw quickly fading in his eyes was probably just my illusion. His tone was full of disgust and cruelty. Kill you, Gu Nanzhao? Would your parents come back to life if you died? Someone as willful as you who caused their parents' death should live in eternal suffering. My chest felt like a gaping hole had been torn open, every breath carrying the metallic tang of blood. After a long while, I finally managed to calm down with great effort and nodded. Fine, do as you please. I won't be going back with you. I walked past him and went straight upstairs. Behind me, Gu Nanzhao remained silent in anger for a long time. Then suddenly, he called out to me, Xiao Qiao, a voice too long unheard, gentle, abrupt, and strange. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. After over 20 years as siblings, I knew him all too well. A bad premonition welled up in my chest. I halted my steps and turned back to look at him. Seeing the smile in his eyes, I spoke again. Are you so sure Professor Wei will treat him? I frowned. What do you mean? Gu Nanzhao clearly had a plan in mind, appearing confident of victory as he walked unhurriedly up to me. You might not be aware, but Professor Wei is famously known throughout the region as a devoted son. His mother isn't quite lucid these days, and I've spent quite some time chatting with her recently. If I were to persuade her, she might say she truly can't bear to part with her son. Can you believe Professor Wei would really abandon his elderly mother alone during the new year? I can't believe he could say such things. It felt like all the blood in my body rushed to my head. By the time I came to my senses, my raised hand had already delivered a fierce slap across the face of the person before me. Gu Nanzhao's unfinished words abruptly stopped. His mocking and cold smile didn't even have time to fade. Frozen on his face, a burning pain radiated from my palm. He's my brother. We've fought and quarreled since childhood. But being slapped in the face like this was something that had never happened before. No matter what, when I realized what I had done, I wasn't sure whether I regretted it or not. I only felt that uncontrollable rage rapidly destroying my reason. Furious, I glared at him. You're truly insane. That was a human life. I refused to say another word to him. He makes me feel like a stranger, even terrifying. I went upstairs and returned to the bedroom to take care of Pei Yan. Gu Nanzhao didn't follow me anymore. After a heavy snowfall, the weather cleared up. In the afternoon, the road was temporarily reopened, allowing slow traffic to pass. Pei Yan could no longer delay and had to pack quickly to go abroad. Whether Gu Nanzhao would actually persuade Professor Wei to change his mind or not. 12. I've already done everything I could. I thought before going abroad, I should at least say goodbye to Gu Nanzhao. But now, it seems unnecessary. He despises me and probably wouldn't care about my departure. Moreover, he harbors unwarranted hostility towards Pei Yan, and I fear that if he learns of our whereabouts, he might cause trouble again. In the worst-case scenario, I'm worried it might affect Pei Yan's transplant surgery. Having made up my mind, I waited until Pei Yan's condition improved slightly and he could get out of bed. Early the next morning, I managed to contact the small town's innkeeper and paid him to arrange a car for me. The bus took nearly an hour to arrive. When I received the call and went downstairs with Pei Yan, Professor Wei happened to be sitting on the living room sofa. Only when I reached the ground floor did I notice a suitcase standing beside him. Seeing us come down, Professor Wei put down his newspaper and stood up, saying, "Let's go." I froze upon hearing this. "Are you heading out too, by any chance?" Professor Wei's face darkened. "Wasn't it you who requested me as the lead surgeon? What? Are you denying it after just one night?" I was both shocked and delighted. "You can set off right now. I heard he rarely returns to his hometown throughout the year. This time when I came back home, I stayed for less than 3 days. Besides, what Gunanjiao said to me yesterday, I thought," Professor Wei said solemnly. "What's wrong? Did you really think my old mother would make a scene about not wanting to part with me and force me to stay?" I was momentarily speechless. Professor Wei bid farewell to his mother and gave instructions to the caregiver. Only then did he turn to me and say, "Let's go. I actually wish I could stay home a couple more days. The old lady is very anxious and urged me to hurry and help treat your illnesses. Let's leave together." When we went out, I still didn't see Gunanjiao and Linen anywhere, got in the car, and it drove away. As I left, I instinctively glanced out the car window a couple more times. Professor Wei spoke up. He went with Linen to buy food in town. The heavy snow blocked the roads for days, and Linen kept insisting on going out to play. I let out an awkward "oh" and hastily averted my gaze. After paying, the car took us directly to the city airport, passing through the town market. I suddenly spotted Gunanjiao and Linen among the scattered stalls and crowds. They were standing in front of a sugar figurine stall, where the vendor handed a freshly made candy sculpture to Linen. The girl said something, then shoved the milk tea in her hand into Gunanjiao's grasp, reached out, fished out his wallet from his coat pocket, and handed over the money. For many years in the past, I was just like this too, dragged Gunanjiao out shopping, then dug into his pockets to pay the bill. The car sped away, the scene flashing past my eyes in a hurry. A moment later, my phone buzzed. I took it out to see a WeChat message from Gunanjiao, abrupt and oddly brief. The message read, "What to eat?" A few more photos of the stalls. The clearest one shows a stall selling handmade osmanthus cakes. Suddenly I remembered that late night many years ago, I was fussing about wanting to eat osmanthus cakes. Teenaged Gunanjiao scared me by saying that children who eat sweet cakes at night will grow cavities all over their teeth, yet he still sneaked out late at night, returning with warm osmanthus cakes tucked in his arms. "Back then," he said, "last time, yesterday, as we had breakfast together, he fried me another egg and also said, 'last time,' and now." Through the car window, I watch that rapidly disappearing figure behind me. I think, perhaps this is truly the last time. I put away my phone without replying to that message. Upon arriving at the airport, just before boarding, the Norwegian real estate company called Pei Yen again. They asked about our approximate arrival time in Norway to finalize the housing purchase contract. After hanging up the phone, Professor Wei nearby looked surprised. "Are you planning to settle down there?" I informed Professor Wei about Pei Yan's plan to stay there for a few years of recuperation after the surgery. "I want to give it a try too, live there for a few years." Professor Wei remained silent for a long while before sighing. "If I'd known it would be like this, I probably shouldn't have deceived Nanjiao." I didn't quite understand. He further explained, "I noticed he harbors great hostility towards Mr. Pei, and I was concerned he might affect Mr. Pei's treatment progress. This morning I lied to him, saying Mr. Pei's condition would definitely keep him bedridden for 2 or 3 days. And you certainly wouldn't be leaving anytime soon." Only then did he agree to accompany Linen into town. Professor Wei finished speaking and sighed softly. "Since you plan to stay there long term, aren't you going to call him before boarding?" After a brief hesitation, I shook my head. "No need." Over these years, the phrase I've heard him say most often is, "Gunanjiao, why was it our parents who died instead of you? Maybe I shouldn't fight anymore." The boarding announcement came over the PA system. The phone in my pocket seems to be vibrating. I didn't pay any more attention to it, got up and entered the boarding gate. Gunanjiao felt uneasy. Ever since leaving Professor Wei's house with Linen, he had been feeling inexplicably unsettled. He was absolutely certain that if Pei Yan couldn't get out of bed for a few days, Gunanjiao wouldn't be able to leave. Yet he felt inexplicably uneasy, for no reason, intensely so. Linen was buying things at the stall. The heavy snow has just melted, yet the biting cold wind still lingers outside. But with New Year's Eve approaching, everyone has returned home for the celebrations. The streets are bustling with vendors and crowds, adorned everywhere in vibrant red, brimming with joyous festivity. Gunanjiao recalls again how every past New Year, He would return to their hometown with his parents and Gunanxiao to visit grandma. Later, grandma passed away. And then mom and dad were gone too. He and Gunanxiao stopped loving the New Year celebrations after that. When did it all begin? He never properly spoke another word to Gunanxiao again, that always lively and mischievous little sister who caused trouble everywhere, that little sister who would cry heartbroken tears and quarrel with parents after catching him eating birthday cake alone. She grew increasingly silent, increasingly lifeless, becoming indifferent to everything. Showing little interest in anything, they grew increasingly distant from each other. More and more, they became like unfamiliar strangers. So, when Gunanxiao suddenly discovered that his younger sister had gone home with that complete stranger, she was chatting and laughing with that man, she was heartbroken and concerned about that person's illness. Despite the heavy snow blocking the roads, despite swallowing her pride, she was willing to risk half her life to find the best doctor for that person. That's why he felt such uncontrollable rage, or perhaps, it wasn't uncontrollable rage after all. He just doesn't want to admit it. He's jealous, insanely jealous, even her own blood brother. She hasn't cared about for so many years. 13. That's why he spoke so thoughtlessly in the heat of the moment, to say such childish and absurd words as asking Dr. Wei not to treat Pei Yin. Gunanxiao immediately slapped him across the face. See, as expected, in her eyes now, her own blood brother is less important than a stranger she's only met a few times. She actually believed he could be despicable enough to prevent a doctor from treating patients. Gunanxiao, hated how her insistence on staying home had led to their parents' deaths in the earthquake, but what he hated even more was how her eyes no longer saw him, and so, he hated that man too. Hate the man who made Gunanxiao care so much in just a few short days. He couldn't accept it. Even if that statement about not being her brother came from his own mouth, he could vent his anger momentarily by pretending to abandon Gunanxiao, yet he couldn't accept that she would really leave. Lin was still saying something beside him. Gunanxiao stood by the bustling street, lost in thought. Those chaotic, contradictory, and twisted emotions engulfed him like a hurricane. He felt uncomfortable, suffocated. Lin took the wallet from his pocket. The elderly street vendor didn't have a payment QR code. Gunanxiao let her be, just wanting to finish quickly and return earlier. A car passed by his side. Out of the corner of his eye, he glimpsed an unfamiliar car. Through the car window, he couldn't see what was inside. How strange. He actually felt as if he'd seen Gunanxiao. Her expression was calm, deathly still. Through the car window, he was also looking at him. He clearly couldn't see, yet he felt that he had seen. It was almost an instinctive reaction in that instant. He pushed Lin aside and chased after him. A rapidly departing car is impossible to catch up with on foot. Soon, the car disappeared from Gunanxiao's sight. Gunanxiao halted his hurried steps, momentarily dazed. It was just an unfamiliar car. He really ought to get his head examined. Lin hurried to catch up and asked him curiously, "What's wrong?" Gunanxiao snapped back to reality and replied, "It's nothing, I must have seen wrong. Are you done shopping? Let's go back." Lin nodded. "All right." She came to town not to buy things for herself. Old Mrs. Wei is advanced in age and suffers from intermittent dementia. When confused, she often thinks she's still a child and wants to eat sugar figurines. With the roads finally unblocked, Lin came to town to buy supplies for her grandmother. Before Gunanxiao left, he couldn't resist taking a few photos of the street stalls and sending them to Gunanxiao. Like a stone sinking into the sea, there was no response. The unease in his heart grew stronger. As they got in the car, Lin said apologetically, "I'm sorry for taking up your time, but Uncle was really strange today. I already said I could come by myself. I'm old enough now. Is it really necessary to have someone accompany me when going out in broad daylight?" Gunanxiao's hand on the steering wheel suddenly trembled. That lingering unease that had been haunting him seemed to suddenly find a trace of its origin. He recalled this morning when Lin went out alone, about to drive to town, Professor Wei's strange expression, insisting despite Lin's refusal that Gunanxiao accompany her. Gunanxiao suddenly thought, perhaps it shouldn't have been like this, he shouldn't have come. Was it really true what Professor Wei said, the one who insisted on driving him away, that Pei Yin wouldn't be able to get out of bed for 2 or 3 days? The unease in Gunanxiao's heart quickly turned into panic and fear. The accelerator underfoot was pressed down continuously, yet he felt an extremely bizarre sensation. He wasn't getting closer to Gunanxiao, he was moving further away from her. He remembered again that unfamiliar car that had driven past him. Suddenly, labored and rapid breaths began escaping from the throat. Shouldn't have left, he was wrong, so wrong. The car sped homeward. When returning to the Wei household, apart from old Mrs. Wei and the caregiver, there was no one else left at home. Gu Nanzhao searched upstairs and downstairs, and even though he didn't want to believe it, he had to realize that Gu Nanzhao was gone. Professor Wei had lied to him. Did you go back to Beijing? Yes, the only option is to return to Beijing. Beijing has the best hospitals and medical facilities in the country. Professor Wei must have gone to Beijing with them to treat Pei Yan. It doesn't matter. Once he returns to Beijing, he can still see Gu Nanzhao. Gu Nanzhao tried to console himself, but cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. He went to old lady Wei's bedroom and asked casually, forcing calmness, "Have they gone to North City?" Old lady Wei was unusually clear-headed, sitting by the window basking in the sunlight. Hearing this, she looked at him in surprise and said, "North City, they went abroad to treat that gentleman, didn't you know? They say Xiao Qiao and that person even planned to settle down there." Gu Nanzhao's phone remained on the WeChat chat interface in his hand. Above, he had sent photos to Gu Nanzhao, but there was no response from the other side. Upon hearing this, the phone in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. Gu Nanzhao couldn't find his younger sister. He couldn't reach her and couldn't find out which country she had gone to. He suddenly remembered again when Lin Nen took the wallet from his coat pocket. He inexplicably felt that Gu Nanzhao was looking at him. Perhaps it wasn't an illusion. They were each other's only remaining family in this world. It was probably a premonition from the unseen. He felt her presence before him, then sensed her departure. Yet only now did he come to understand, in this time that was already destined to be too late. At that moment, Gu Nanzhao saw Lin Nen take the wallet from his pocket. Such an intimate gesture. What is she thinking in her heart? For so many years, Gu Nanzhao intentionally maintained close contact with Lin Nen, knowing full well it would upset Gu Nanzhao. He still deliberately did it. He resented Gu Nanzhao and intentionally wanted to make her unhappy, but it's not just because of this. He approached Lin Nen also because she was Professor Wei's niece, 14, over these years. Since her parents left, Gu Nanzhao always seemed lifeless. Gu Nanzhao once secretly followed her to the hospital. He heard her tell the doctor that she often felt chest tightness, shortness of breath, and difficulty breathing. Gu Nanzhao worried that she might have a heart problem. He wanted to consult the most specialized Professor Wei in this field for detailed advice, but since his parents passed away, Professor Wei and the Gu family had grown somewhat distant. Gu Nanzhao felt awkward again. Unwilling to admit outright that he sought out the doctor out of concern for Gu Nanzhao, so he thought of reconnecting with Professor Wei through Lin Nen. And more in a Cold War. He always felt that not much time had passed. He was only using his hatred for Gu Nanzhao to vent the pain of suddenly losing his parents. But now, on New Year's Eve, he stood on the bitterly cold street. Suddenly it occurred to me that perhaps Gu Nanzhao, perhaps she, wasn't entirely at fault after all. Maybe he had heard others say that 7 years ago on that day, she insisted on staying home to prepare for his 18th birthday celebration. It might not necessarily have been a lie to him. Gu Nanzhao looked utterly bewildered as he made another call to Professor Wei. This time, the call actually went through. Gu Nanzhao was momentarily overjoyed, asking with a trembling voice in panic, "Professor Wei, you know where Xiao Qiao is, don't you? Please tell me." The voice on the other end remained calm as it interrupted him. "Nanzhao, I called to tell you this. Given your behavior these past few days, I definitely won't tell you a single thing about Nanzhao and Mr. Pei's whereabouts. So, don't waste your effort." Gu Nanzhao was burning with anxiety. "I promise. I won't interfere with any of your treatments when I come. I was just really worried about her. She also had heart problems. I once heard her tell the doctor that she often felt short of breath." Professor Wei said solemnly, "I've reviewed her medical records. Her heart is perfectly healthy. The shortness of breath was caused by her frequently recurring depression over these years." Gu Nanzhao instinctively retorted, "How could that be? She's been perfectly fine all these years. There's no way she could have any psychological." The words trailed off abruptly. "Really, has she been perfectly fine?" He recalled how Gu Nanzhao had always appeared lifeless over these 7 years. His expression was pale, as if he had lost interest in everything. He no longer enjoyed talking, no longer cared about him. Even when accused or questioned, his expression remained utterly indifferent. Occasionally arguing with him would always end with her powerless silence in the end. Gu Nanzhao just kept thinking that Gu Nanxiao might be ill. He wanted to find Professor Wei to examine her, yet he never properly considered that her condition was more likely psychological trauma. Over there, Professor Wei continued, post-traumatic stress disorder, severe depression. It started 7 years ago. Nanzhao, she never wanted to tell you because she couldn't bear to see you suffer from your parents' passing. Afraid it would cause you more pain. What about you? Do you know that she also lost her parents and is grieving? The voices over there gradually grew distant and faint in my ears. You've been venting all your pain and hatred onto her. And what about her? Her guilt and suffering. The despair of feeling her parents die right beside her. After all these years, who can I vent to? All the emotions that couldn't be vented could only be suppressed in the heart, accumulating into an increasingly heavy illness. Gu Nanzhao suddenly felt unsteady on his feet. The other side stated bluntly, 7 years ago, there were clear group chat records. Nanxiao stayed home to prepare your birthday banquet. She couldn't foresee the future or predict that earthquake. All these years, you truly didn't believe, or were you unwilling to accept that your parents' deaths were also connected to you? So you choose to cover your eyes and condemn Nanxiao's willful actions for causing your parents' death. That paper-thin layer of window screen was finally torn apart. Gu Nanzhao felt it, the bloody, throbbing pain in his chest. He just couldn't accept it. No one, absolutely no one, to truly bear the guilt for the death of one's parents. It was just an accidental tragedy. Professor Wei sighed lightly. Over these years, Nanxiao's suffering has far surpassed yours. You say you're very worried about her, but have you really ever been concerned for her? Have you ever thought that she might not be able to bear it either? Gu Nanzhao gradually could no longer hear any sound from that side. What began exploding in his ears were the cruel words he had spoken countless times over the years. Gu Nanxiao, why wasn't it you who died? Gu Nanxiao, how dare you still be alive? 15. Over these years, she had so many accidental food poisonings, accidental slips into water, accidental falls from cliffs. Were they really just accidents? No, no. He couldn't accept his parents' death. He plunged the blade, countless times, into the heart of the sister his parents had desperately tried to protect, stabbing the last remaining family he had in this world, venting all the pent-up resentment and anguish that had nowhere else to go. Yet they never truly considered that they should have relied on each other, should have licked each other's wounds, never properly realized. That year she was only 15. In these 7 years, she suffered more than anyone, living a life worse than death. Gu Nanzhao trembled as he covered his face, weeping uncontrollably. He thought she wouldn't come back. She settled abroad, finally deciding to completely abandon him. He lost his parents, and finally, he himself lost the sister who had always adored him. The night Pei Yan and I arrived in Norway and completed the hospitalization procedures. Perhaps being in a foreign land made me instinctively uneasy, lying on the hospital cot. I had that nightmare again after many days, trapped under the rubble. I heard my parents' gentle voices from the recording. In another blink, I saw scarlet blood, like a winding viper. It emerged from beneath the ruins, menacingly and slowly submerging the tops of my feet, blood red, surging. As my vision wavered, I saw 2 bodies unearthed from the ruins. It was Gu Nanzhao's hysterical accusation. Gu Nanxiao, why wasn't it you who died in the illusion? My blood-covered parents asked me with disappointment and sorrow. Xiao Qiao, why did you have to stay at home? Why did you have to cause Mom and Dad's death? Xiao Qiao, weren't Mom and Dad good enough to you? Xiao Qiao, why? I woke up from a nightmare. The ward was deathly silent. The beep-beep sounds of medical equipment unusually clear. Like countless nights before, I startled awake, sat up in bed, and gazed out the window, feeling confused about why I'm still alive. I shouldn't be alive anymore. Pei Yan was sleeping soundly on the adjacent hospital bed. With the transplant surgery approaching, he needed the most adequate rest and the calmest, most relaxed state of mind. This is the most critical period of time. I should stay here with him. It's agreed. But that little voice inside me started pulling at me again, viciously and rudely. I couldn't control myself and left the ward. Norway's winter is equally cold. I walked onto the rooftop. The howling wind enveloping me, calling to me, luring me to the edge of the rooftop. It said that with just one leap, I could see my parents. I can confess, atone, and no longer endure endless suffering. I walked to the edge, reaching my hand over the rooftop railing into the impenetrable fog below. For a fleeting moment, I lost control, lifting my foot, ready to step over the railing. Suddenly, a gentle voice called from behind, Nanxiao. The ferocious little demon in my heart immediately fled in panic. like a thief afraid of being caught. I pulled my consciousness back and turned around. From a distance, I looked at that person. Pei Yan wasn't in a hurry to approach, just stood there and asked me gently, "Are you here to look at the stars?" The doctor said there's a test report that needs to be signed and confirmed by a family member. As you know, I don't have any family left, so I'll have to trouble you. He was lying. It's 3 in the morning, only the night shift nurse remains. But then he said he had no family left. The heart transplant surgery will begin soon. That's probably his only chance to keep living. Pei Yan looked at me, and after a long moment, his voice rose slightly. "Hey, I promise you, after the surgery goes well, I'll live properly." The wind lifted the hem of his clothes and tousled his bangs. I remembered again, the day I first met him. He took me home, then lied about going out to buy groceries. He lied. He went to the riverside, but in the end, still bought fish and came home with me. We stood at opposite ends of the rooftop, gazing at each other across the heavy, deathly silence of the night. After a long while, I heard him speak loudly again. "Hey, Nan Xiao, we promised to live well together. Living alone is really quite meaningless." My tears suddenly began to fall. The wind at the rooftop's edge carries away my tears. My hair strands blur my vision before being swept aside by the gust. I smiled at him. I came just to see the stars, but forgot the weather was bad. Didn't get to see any. 16. Pei Yan stepped forward, walking toward me. He stopped before me, then extended his hand saying, "Come down, I'll help you." Only then did I realize I had reached the highest point of the rooftop. This was an elevated platform, the only gap on the rooftop. There was no guardrail ahead at all, just one more step forward, and I would step into the thick fog, plunging into the abyss. I looked at his outstretched hand, where several bruises from needle puncture still marked the back. Near the wrist, one spot showed blood that had only just dried. It must have been from when he pulled out the 4-needle to come find me, leaving the wound fresh. For a moment, I was lost in thought, then reached out and grasped his hand. He immediately raised his other hand, wrapped it around my waist, and carried me down from the high platform. He quickly, firmly, yet gently embraced me. I heard his voice by my ear, calm yet trembling. Nan Xiao, Nan Xiao, we're both alive and well." After that night, for many consecutive days, I didn't have any more nightmares. Pei Yan bought the house and signed the purchase agreement. He sat on the bed, opened the interior photos on his phone, and discussed with me, "This bedroom will be reserved for you. And we'll add a balcony later. Open the door, and you'll see the beach and the ocean." There was anticipation in his eyes, like starlight in the deep night. I thought, once his surgery was truly over without complications, there'd be no reason for us to keep living together. I'd find another place to live, and look for a job too, but I couldn't bear to refuse him at this moment, so I nodded first and said, "All right." Pei Yan was very delighted. He went on to tell me how his late sister had always wanted to visit Norway when she was still alive. Here there are polar nights and auroras, a 15,000-kilometer coastline, and the Norwegian wood from the writer's works. He said with great longing, "After the surgery is over, let's settle here for a few years. Would you like to accompany me on a journey to explore and see everything properly?" After just a few days in Norway, his complexion grew even paler, holding back tears. I nodded and said, "Okay." Pei Yan felt somewhat apologetic and said, "Do you have any other places you'd like to go? I can accompany you there too. Could we perhaps?" He suddenly gave a light cough, perhaps feeling unwell. His face flushed slightly red. In the end, the words that followed were left unsaid. I responded, "Yes, there are many places I want to go. After your surgery is over, I'll tell you one by one." Pei Yan nodded with a smile. "All right." Late at night, Pei Yan started vomiting again. After throwing up every bit of food he'd eaten, he coughed up blood once more. This time, it was more like vomiting blood. I have a feeling that without a heart transplant soon, he might not last much longer. Outside the ward, Professor Wei suddenly rushed in. "The donor has suddenly passed away. Quick, get to the operating room and prepare for the heart transplant. To ensure the viability of the donor heart, the heart transplant surgery must be completed within 12 hours of the donor's death." Professor Wei quickly arranged for medical staff to come and wheel Pei Yan into the operating room, then hurried to the operating room to change into surgical gowns. Pei Yan lay on the gurney, and as he left the ward, he reached out and gently grasped the back of my hand. My palms were sweaty with nervousness, but he instead smiled reassuringly at me. "Don't worry, it'll be fine." I escorted him into the operating room. From the side of the deceased donor, an unusual commotion suddenly erupted. Pei Yan had already entered the operating room. I rushed to the donor's side, only to see the donor's family members wielding knives to obstruct the medical staff. The death of a loved one caused family members to become emotionally distraught and lose control. We refused to donate the heart. I want my son buried whole, so his next life will have a healthy and complete body. The consent form for heart donation has been signed by both the donor and family members, but now the family has just lost a loved one and is emotionally vulnerable, suddenly changing their mind. Just as a loved one has passed away, their heart is about to be removed. For most ordinary people, this would likely be something difficult to bear in the moment, with the heart transplant being time-sensitive. Some doctors grew anxious and spoke without thinking. The dead cannot be brought back to life. And there is no afterlife after death, a single sentence, like a drop of water falling into a pot of boiling oil. The family members who had been hesitantly blocking the way in small groups suddenly all rushed forward, shielding the deceased. They looked at me and the medical staff with grief and indignation. Everyone has an afterlife. How dare you curse my loved ones to have no afterlife, all for the sake of others' lives. My mind was filled with nothing but a violent ringing. With family members blocking the way, no one could force the issue. The donor's body was taken away by the family. I walked out of the ward and gazed at the distant sea through the window at the end of the corridor. The surging waves carried the winter snowflakes. Pei Yan was still lying in the operating room. He is waiting for rebirth. It was me who told him, try to live on. He agreed, once again, in hopeful anticipation. All in vain. Pei Yan never got to wait for a second compatible heart. The new year passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was the Lantern Festival. He began using a breathing apparatus, having grown so thin he was practically just skin and bones. In the morning, I borrowed the hospital kitchen to make tang yuan, which we ate together. When my parents were still alive, they told me that eating glutinous rice balls would bring peace and safety. Pei Yan only ate half before vomiting it all up in an instant. What came out was still crimson red. For him, peace ultimately remained nothing but a distant hope. That night, he coughed up blood severely, suffered respiratory failure, and was rushed into the emergency room. In his final moments, the doctor came out and called me in. I leaned by the bedside and held his bony hand, 17, with great effort. He told me he had notarized his will, leaving all his property to me after his death. As if afraid I might refuse, his voice trembled with unease. I don't have any other skills. Back then, I couldn't save my own sister. Now that I've saved some money, I can't give it to her anymore. Please, let me pretend it's reaching her hands. After I die, can I have a peaceful dream? Please, in this world, perhaps no one else could understand each other's endless self-blame and guilt as deeply as we do, for the dead loved ones. For our own helplessness. In my blurred vision, I nodded. Mumbling, he said to me again, if you ever get sick in the future, you must get proper treatment and live well. I thought he must have mistaken me for someone else again. His words were spoken to that sister who once chose to end her own life to save him money when she was gravely ill. The hand I was holding suddenly turned and gave mine a weak, gentle squeeze. I heard his words, growing fainter yet spoken with great effort. No mistake, Nan Xiao. I've never mistaken you for someone else. It means Nan Xiao should live well. I felt somewhat sad, but could no longer cry. During these days, I'd been worried his surgery might not go smoothly, often hiding in the stairwell, quietly shedding tears. But now, expectations dashed, facing his impending death. Yet I no longer had tears left. After Pei Yan passed away, I filed a lawsuit against his father who never raised him or his sister but came to claim the inheritance. That man wanted money. I hired private investigators and lawyers, gathered evidence of his fraudulent crimes, and sent him to prison. I then sorted through Pei Yan's belongings and found a photo of him and his sister in his wallet, carrying his ashes and that photo. I continued to fulfill the promise we made together. I stayed in Norway for over half a year. I turned off my phone and hired a guide. I witnessed the polar night and auroras, and beheld 15,000 kilometers of coastline. I saw the Sonafjord, that place called Norwegian Wood. The world of fairy tales that Pei Xing had once read about and yearned for with all her heart. One day, the tour guide looked at the ashes in my hand and asked, "Is this your beloved?" I shook my head and said, "No." He was more than a lover or a friend, an old acquaintance. I returned to the country, to Beijing. More than half a year later, on the day I landed back home, I turned on my phone and received a call from Norway. An unfamiliar voice on the other end informed me, I am a psychiatrist. And I haven't been able to reach you for the past 6 months. About half a year ago, a Mr. Pei gave me a large sum of money to treat your psychological condition. I walked out of the airport and stood by the bustling street. The voice continued, such a large sum of money truly makes me feel unworthy. Please, you must tell me where you're going so I can treat you. To be fair, he was indeed an excellent psychotherapist. Perhaps it was truly as he said, he felt uneasy about having taken too much money. He brought me to North City and provided me with long-term psychotherapy, diligent and responsible. They inquire about my whereabouts and physical condition every day. I still often feel heartache because of the past, but at least, gradually, I no longer go to rooftops, dive into deep waters, or take medicine recklessly. The northern city is just that small. I started soon after, occasionally running into Gunanzhou. He had grown much haggard, his eyes and brows dull with exhaustion. Though barely half a year had passed, it felt as if many, many years had gone by. Spotting me, he flusteredly chased after me from across the street. While crossing the street, I was almost hit by a car, followed by sharp honking sounds all around. He stumbled over recklessly, looking utterly disheveled, when he urgently caught up to me and looked at me. His face trembled for a long time without uttering a single word. I stared at him for a while. But when he didn't speak, I turned to leave. He suddenly asked me urgently, Xiao, come home with your brother and have a meal, okay? After some thought, I calmly replied, no, I have a job onboarding appointment this afternoon. I found a job. The psychologist told me that keeping oneself busier might help alleviate some depressive symptoms. Gunanzhou caught up to me and asked urgently, what about tomorrow? I remained silent, looking at him. He finally stopped mid-sentence. After a long while, he forced out a smile that could hardly be called pleasant. It's okay, maybe next time, alright. He knew perfectly well that I wasn't truly without time. I heard him speak again, trembling, remorseful. I'm sorry, I couldn't take care of you properly for Mom and Dad. I whispered, it's okay, I've been doing alright. After all this time, I can't really say I hate him that much. He's been suffering too. I know, I just don't really want to go back with him anymore. As I left, from the corner of my eye, I saw Gunanzhou's bloodshot eyes, then what seemed like a tear falling in an instant, and his hurriedly turned head, avoiding my gaze. I returned to my place. Late at night, I suddenly received a phone call from a hospital in London. They informed me that the matching heart I had been desperately searching for, which I had previously registered there, had been found. The donor was an orphan who had received help from all sectors of society, now facing death from a car accident. They wanted to give back to society and were willing to donate their heart after passing. Coincidentally, it's a perfect match for Pei Yan's heart. I sat on the bed, gazing out at the pitch-black night. After a long silence, I hoarsely said, thank you, but it's no longer needed. The voice on the other end cautiously asked, has it already been found? I heard rumors before that Mr. Pei found a compatible heart in Norway. It seems it's true. After a long silence, I finally just responded, MHM. The person on the other end sincerely congratulated me. That's wonderful news for both of you. The surgery must have gone smoothly too. I replied, very smoothly. They said something else with a laugh, but I didn't catch it clearly. I hung up the phone. I walked to the window and opened it. The snow lies white and heavy, weighing down the branches. The sound of snapping twigs is especially clear in the silent night. 18. Time flies. And once again it's the depths of winter. In the hazy white snow, I seemed to see that person again. My hair stuck to my face, then was blown away by the wind. He stood there in the distance, shouting to me. Hey, Nan Chao, we promised to live well together.